That track might dry for our pit stop race coming up for you. We'll look forward to that shortly, but first of all, let's look back at some of the highlights from yesterday's pit stop race. When the lights went out, Charlie Digby from pole position was under pressure from Jamie Fulvey. The BMW from Team Brit, making its debut in the championship, swept around the outside of the Lamborghini and would pick up the race lead. Problems at the first corner, however, for Frank Morris, who ran out wide at the wheel of his Lamborghini, and that would see him to the tail end of the field. Doc Bush made a good overtake up the inside of Neil Wallace in the SVG BMW as they approached the Fogarty S's. That would see a place gained for the number 75 Team Parker Racing Porsche. There was also a really good fight going on for the lead of Group GTA. New to the championship, Andrew Perry was under big pressure from Hadley Simpson as they went down into the old hairpin. There was a small slide from the pink Ginetta, slowed the exit speed. Hadley Simpson was able to pick up the lead of Group GTA. The pit window was open for some cars, not for others. Theirs had closed, and one car hadn't pitted. Luke Bennett came in after the pit window had closed for Group GTC, so they did the driver change, but because the window had already closed, they would be handed in the number 8 Ginetta a penalty, and that would drop them through the order. Pro drivers had taken on board the cars. Jamie Stanley was now on board the number 63 car that had made good progress on the recovery drive from Frank Thomas. Jamie Stanley straight up the inside of Jack Gadd to pick up a place in Group GTC as the two Lamborghinis battled together. The leader of Group GTC had a spin. That had been handed over by Charlie Digby to Mike Taylor. A spin at Goddard's would see that car drop from second to third, but it would still hang on to the lead of the group. There was problems late on in the race for the 24/7 Ginetta. Charlie Benson bringing that car into the pit lane with some sort of fueling problem that would see their retirement. But for Team Brit, it was the perfect debut in GT Cup. They would come through. Paul Fullick and Jamie Fulvey to win the first race of the year. So there's the highlights from yesterday's race win, that debut race win for Team Brit, new to the GT Cup Championship for 2026. They aren't the only new drivers that we've got in the championship, and we managed to catch up with some of them before the weekend got underway. 24/7 Racing and Innovation Racing. More new names join the grid of the GT Cup Championship for 2026. Charlie Benson and Ben Taylor out in the 247 Ginetta. Charlie, your first season of car racing, having graduated out of karts.
I'm finding it really good. I'm really enjoying it. I've took well to it with some really good pace yesterday, showing the fastest in category all day yesterday. So if we can put that down in the race, then we can make some really good results.
I suppose that the big thing for you, having been so successful in karts, graduating into cars, is that weight transfer in a car is so much different compared to what you're used to in a car.
Yeah, I mean, with the suspension even and the brakes, like everything's completely different. It's like a totally different discipline. The way you brake, the way you enter corners, the way you exit corners, everything's different.
And Ben, it'll be your first season driving a rear-wheel drive sports car. Lots of racing experience, but not in anything like the Ginetta that you're campaigning this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me, I still feel relatively like a novice for this season. I'm I guess, fairly late to racing. Done 2 years with Mini Challenge and a year in Audi TCs last year. So first year GT Cup, first year in a rear-wheel drive Ginetta. So yeah, lots to learn, but we've made a good start.
I suppose you have to go back to your track day trophy days when you were racing in mixed class, whereas in minis and in what you were racing last year, Audi TT, single class.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really the only year I've ever done anything multi-class. So a few years doing single make, back to multi-class this year. So it'll be interesting not to be in the quickest thing on the grid.
You've been out there testing, you're trying to get used to the car, working with each other to try and get the setups that you're both happy with it, Charlie?
Yeah, I think we've found a pretty good balance of the car now. So, I mean, me and Ben were showing some really good pace yesterday, and I think with the setup, we can agree it was pretty good. There wasn't anything to note. So I think we can just have a good weekend this weekend. It's still a learning weekend from the both of us at the end of the day, so we'll see what we can do.
And as you'll well know, Ben, motorsport is very much a team game as well. So you've got a teammate to consider, you've got Phil and the fantastic 24/7 team working together.
Yeah, and it's been great to be working with 24/7. They've really helped bring us on super quickly. They're obviously a well-experienced team campaigning in this championship. So couldn't think of a better place to be to start the year.
Well, we're delighted to have you on the grid. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Simon, you're the team owner at Innovation Racing. Expanded team for 2026. 3 cars out this weekend at GT Cup.
That's right, yeah. We've now got GTH, G56, GT4 Evolution. We've also got our Ginetta G56 GTIR, which we've done ourselves. That's going in GTC, and also the 55 in GTA. So yeah, strong year for us.
Strong year, but a busy man as well, because you're driving, you're running the team, you're prepping the cars, you're doing a new scholarship for 2027, which will see drivers into GT Cup. So it's been a busy winter.
Oh, it's been busy. We've actually got more busier through winter than we did last season. Yeah, we're running everything. It's very busy indeed. The scholarship now is going to be for a free drive for 27 in GT Cup in our GTH class. So yeah, it's all really good.
That's a stunning prize, and it's a prize which is already creating a lot of interest out there.
It definitely is, yeah. We're hoping to run this year on year, and we're just trying to promote people who wouldn't normally be in the sport into the sport and get them a leg up into this world.
You look at the drivers that you've got within your cars this weekend. You've got some quality drivers out there. You should be looking for good things in Innovation Racing this year.
Yeah, I think all 3 cars should be championship contenders. So yeah, strong year with strong drivers.
And on top of that, GT Cup also dipping a toe into British GT.
That's right, yeah. We've took that step to go into British GT, so we're not a one-trick pony. So let's see how that goes.
Have a great weekend. Good luck this year.
Thank you. Cheers.
So great to catch up with some of the new drivers that joined the GT Cup Championship for 2026. But of course, we also have some returning teams and some returning drivers. And one of them is just over to my left here. So we're going to grab a quick word with Rupert Williams. Jolt Racing is back racing this year. And you had some good pace yesterday.
Yeah, it was nice to get out in the wet as well. I've had very little experience in the wet, so it was nice to get out and feel my way around. But yeah, it turned out nice. And we had some good pace later on in the day as well. So yeah, good.
You're obviously stood here and they're bolting tyres on the car, which confirms the fact that John's going to start in conditions which, well, nobody quite knows what they're going to do in the next 100 minutes.
We keep looking at the weather and we were waiting to see the app that says there's going to be sunshine, so that's the one we're looking at. So yeah, but hopefully we're all right now. So yeah, be good.
What about the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit?
Yeah, I love Donny. I went from when I started in C1, I hated it, but it's actually my favourite track now. So yeah, it's great, loving it.
And looking forward to a full season in 2026 in GT Cup.
With GT Cup, yeah. Chris promised me his Elvis impression yesterday, which is amazing. So yeah, highlight for me.
Have a great race. Well done.
Cheers.
So there we go. Rupert Williams loves the Donington Grand Prix circuit. So let's have a look at the track itself. So let's have a look at the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. The cars will head off the start-finish line and up towards the first corner, the right-hander at Redgate corner. Then it's Hollywood and that plunge down through the twists and the turns of the Craner curves. To the lowest point, the old hairpin, where the cars then start to climb up through Starkey's Bridge, Schwantz Curve and the right-hander at McLean's. Tricky corner, Coppice corner, blind entry, double apex right-hander that feeds you onto the straight and in towards the left and the right flicks at the Fogarty S's. From there, it's the heavy downhill braking area into the Melbourne hairpin. You come back up the hill and into the off-camber exit of Goddard's and over the start-finish line. That is a lap of the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit that, of course, played host to the 1993 European Grand Prix. It's 2.49 miles long in total. About half a mile of that is just the Melbourne hairpin. And it's also quite undulating. The elevation change across the lap is 35.8 metres. It's a real challenge, this circuit, with so many different types of corners and a couple of key corners that it's so important to get off the corner to carry the momentum onto the straight. 12 turns in total. That's the challenge of the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. So there we go, quick look at the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, which is rather wet still. You can see the spray coming out the back of the cars as they make their way around from the... Sorry, I'm panting as I've run from the pit lane up to the commentary box. As they make their way around the circuit, ready to line up on the grid. Now, as Rupert Williams was saying, nobody's quite sure what the weather's going to do. We've got those darkened skies. You can almost see the rain in the background, but with the wind coming, is that going to hit us? Or is it going to move off to the left? We'll have to wait and see. All the teams have been looking at the weather, and I don't think any of them know what's going to unfold in the next 100 minutes. So there is the car that sits on pole position. It qualified fastest this morning. 1 minute 26.950 was the time. Jamie Falvey will start the car as he did yesterday. It was a brilliant stint from him, a great stint also from Paul Fullick, who I think was sort of understating what they did yesterday. They were saying, you know, they were a bit lucky. No, I think Team Brit absolutely had the pace yesterday. I don't think there was any luck involved. It's still cold, it's still breezy, it's wet. The wind has calmed down a bit. It was up to nearly 30-35 kilometres per hour yesterday and earlier on today. It's now come down to 22 kilometres per hour, but it's still chilly, just 9 degrees out there, which means that, yeah, with the wind chill factor, it certainly feels rather cold still. This car here, number 59, will be started by Jack Gadd. Jack drove the car in the second part of the race yesterday. Dan Brown started yesterday, and I gather as soon as Dan, because originally Dan was not going to drive the car yesterday, Jack was going to do it all. And that's because Dan needed to be down in London, but he worked it out and thought, okay, if I do the first stint and start the car, I can literally, as he did, get out the car, hop straight in his road car and drive all the way down to London for something he got down there. So he was literally, said goodbye to the team as soon as he got out of the car, and he was off. So he'll be hoping for good things. And the red McLaren with the Dayglow yellow flashes to it was brilliant in the hands of Charlie Digby in the first part of the race yesterday, and Mike Saylor in the second part of the race. Graham Tilley, who owns the car but is not able to drive at the moment, is here today. So good to see that Graham is still part of the GT Cup family, and hopefully we'll see him back very soon indeed. Number 8 will be started by Bertie Breen. That'll be handed over to the Sporting Enhanced driver, Luke Bennett, who started the race yesterday but can only, as a Sporting Enhanced driver, start one of the 2 races over the weekend. So Bertie Breen will be on board for that one, and from what I gather from race control, it may well be that we get the rolling lap underway and the safety car might stay out for a couple of laps. Number 28, worth mentioning this car. Paul Bailey and David Brabham took the win in GTO yesterday. Now there's a few small mechanical issues with that car, which means that that car is likely to pit more than once in this race. It's something to do with the fueling of the car, which means that they have got special dispensation. They're not going to get a penalty if they pit outside of the window. They're going to have to come in before the window opens, fuel the car, then they'll come back in and do the driver change, and they may be back in for a third time. And all of that, of course, is going to affect where they're running in this race, but they want to get involved still. They still want to go out there, still want to put some more miles on the car and understand what is a new car to Paul Bailey. There was a great win in Group GTA yesterday, the number 135, Andrew Perry and Dan Quintero. Ginetta, which is new to the championship, caught up with those drivers over the weekend. They took a class win yesterday, finished 13th overall in the race and claimed a class win, but it was Andrew Perry that started the car yesterday. Dan Quintero will start that car today. They've been competing with that car in another championship for the last couple of years, but that championship, which did have quite a few UK rounds, is now largely European based, so they've opted to move to GT Cup. Another car that is new to the championship and new drivers to the championship this year. Great to see Dennis Story and Alan McCullough out at the wheel of their BMW M2. The car's still being developed at this stage, so they were a little bit adrift of the main pace in qualifying, but again, as ever, weather is a leveller. Let's see what they might be able to do in these tricky conditions with all of the cars, understandably on this wet track, starting on the Pirelli controlled wet tyres. Is the tarmac going to stay wet all the way through? If it starts to dry, there's a decision to make if you're going to swap to slicks, and those slicks would be ideally placed when the pit window is open. Stick the slicks on if the circuit's dry enough. If it's still wet at that stage and it dries to the end of the race, it's an even more difficult decision. Do you stay out on the wets and they'll start to feel really second hand and the car will be moving round lots, or do you give up more time on track, pit onto slicks, and at some point, if it does dry, there'll be a crossover period. They'll be looking at the lap times and thinking, okay, right, we know what a slick lap time is. The wet lap times are now so slow because the track has dried, we might be better going on a slick. I don't know. Nobody knows what the weather is going to happen. Race control confirming it will be a safety car start. The final last few team members just being waved off the grid, and then we'll get this rolling lap underway, and then we'll see how many laps we might have behind the safety car before it peels its way into the pit lane. The first rolling lap will always be under the safety car. We know it's going to stay out for probably one more lap thereafter, but then we will wait and see. The clock will start to tick when the safety car completes its first formation lap, and then we'll be racing in reality, but under those safety car conditions. So 30-second board is held aloft, and then the green flag will be waved, and off we will go. The safety car will lead the pack round. A BMW and a Lamborghini sitting on the front row of the grid, an Audi and a Lamborghini on row number 2, a Ginetta and a Lamborghini on row number 3, a Mercedes and a Ginetta on row number 4. It's 2 Ginettas on row number 5, a Porsche and a McLaren on row number 6, BMW and Ginetta and BMW. That's the grid. There is one car that raced yesterday which is absent today, and that is Tim Docker, unfortunately, who I don't think was ever scheduled to race today. So Paddock Motorsport have left Donington Park, and they'll be focusing their efforts on the next round that will take place down at Snetterton in about a month's time. So cars heading off around the circuit, even at these reduced speeds. Look at the spray that's coming out the back of the cars. So you can imagine that all of the drivers, they've had the exploratory lap out of the pit lane. They'll begin to understand as to where the water is. Because of the undulations at Donington Park, you do tend to get that some areas dry a lot quicker than others. So for instance, the highest part of the circuit up at Coppice Corner, that will probably dry a lot quicker than the old hairpin. Let me confirm the grid for you then. Jamie Fulvey starts from pole position, 170 seconds. That car will be stopped in the pits when the pit stop takes place. Mike Taylor alongside, also on 170 seconds. Row 2 of the grid, Peter Ursig, because he's got the pro driver Marcus Clutton. It's 195 in the pit lane, and alongside him Jack Gadd on 160. Row 3 of the grid, Bertie Bream on 150 seconds, has for company Frank Morris, who is on 165. And row 4 of the grid, Paul Bailey, 200 seconds, because he's got the pro driver David Brabham, and they won their group yesterday, so they pick up success seconds, has got Mark Ellman, who is on 150. Then as we head to the next row of the grid, it's Ben Taylor on 150, and Rob Garofol, who starts, is on 165. Before we head to row number 6, and that is where we see the car of what will be Rupert Williams on 160 seconds, and alongside Neil Astley, who's on 165. The next row of the grid sees Dan Quintero on 170 seconds line up alongside what will be Seven Christian, who will start today on 160 seconds. James Waring is next up on 170 seconds, and Dennis Story, who is on 150. And opting to start off the back of the grid, as he did yesterday, is Doc Bush off the back of the grid. And if you're wondering why all of the cars stop for a different amount, it depends on the driver pairings that you have in reality. So pro sporting pairings and or pro sporting enhanced pairings have what will be 180 seconds in the pit lane. Pro sporting and sporting pairings, or pro sporting and sporting enhanced pairings, it's all very confusing, have 170. Everybody else has 150 plus extra time in the pits if you won your group yesterday. In reality, an extra 20 seconds if you win your group, an extra 15 if you were second, an extra 10 if you're third. So add all of those together, and that is the amount of time that all of the cars have to be stationary in the pit lane. We also know it takes 18 seconds to drive from pit entry to pit exit at the regulatory pit lane speed limit. Add all of that together, we know how long a car should be in the pit lane area. So we'll have to wait and see as to what they can do. So the clock has started. The 100 minutes are already ticking away. They have started, by the look of things, the clock as soon as the car pulled off on the first formation lap. I was expecting the clock to start to tick at the end of the first formation lap, but in reality we are already racing, but under safety car conditions. And when race control have deemed that the track is safe enough, and largely because the drivers haven't really experienced huge amounts of Donington Park in the wet, either in testing on Thursday or Friday or yesterday, this second formation lap acts as the opportunity to understand what the grip levels are at before the safety car peels its way in towards the pit lane. So lights remain on the safety car. We'll see whether it comes in at the end of this lap, which confirmation has just been received that it will be. So it's just 2 formation laps, which is, in reality, if you qualify in the dry and race in the wet, that's what you get in any normal car race anyway, 2 formation laps to get used to the conditions. So that's exactly what race control have done. But these 2 formation laps have been whilst the clock is ticking down. There's Doc Bush, former motorcycle racer, back for another season in GT Cup in the familiarly liveried Team Parker Racing Porsche. The sister car that we were expecting to have out with Michael McKinney and Phil Keane is not here this weekend, but they should be with us at Snetterton next time out, is my understanding. Just a clash of dates which hasn't allowed, whether it be business commitments or racing commitments, Michael McInerney or Phil Keane to be here this weekend. So final bit of weaving round being done, build those brake temperatures in particular in the cars, but also try and build some temperature into the Pirelli slick tyres. Safety car has now got its lights out and is going to accelerate its way down towards the Melbourne hairpin. It will make its way up towards Goddard's, and it will turn left and into the pit lane, and we will get our first 100-minute race of the season underway. We've got another 100-minute race coming up at Silverstone, as we did last year. That will be in early August, but the usual format will take place both at Snetterton and when we return back to Donington Park in just a couple of months' time, and it will have a sprint and a pit stop race one day and a pit stop race and a sprint race the next. But for this weekend and for Silverstone, it's 50-minute pit stop race on the Saturday, 100-minute pit stop race on the Sunday. So it will be a single file restart, and now it is Jamie Fulvey who decided he wants to get things going. Nice wide line taken by Mike Taylor going round through Goddard's to try and utilise the less polished tarmac, and we get the race fully now underway. Jamie Fulvey leads the way up towards Redgate Corner with Mike Taylor in second place. Peter Ursig slots the Audi, as you would expect, into third, with Jack Gadd there in fourth position, Bertie Bream in fifth, and Frank Morris in sixth position. Everybody being sensible on the approach towards Redgate Corner for the first time, still trying to seek out the ideal line, but of course this is the first time they've done it at full racing speed. So onto the brakes, down through the old hairpin for the first time of asking. It is BMW from Lamborghini, from Audi, from Lamborghini, the top four, and it looks as though everybody so far has not been caught out by any damp patches, and it actually doesn't look as though there's any flow of water going from one side of the circuit to the other, which is often what happens with the gradients here at Donington Park, that the circuit has water on the left-hand side, and that water, for instance, then flows across the circuit and over to the right-hand side, and that can make it very, very difficult, particularly where that's in a braking area. So everybody driving to the conditions at this stage as they accelerate their way along the straight, down in towards the braking area for the Fogarty S's. You can still see the ball of spray coming out from behind the cars, but with a bit of cloud cover, but then some broken blue bits up in the sky. We'll have to wait and see. Big sliding moment for Mark Elman on the brakes coming in towards what was the Fogarty S's. So maybe just needs to tweak the brake balance on that car a bit, because that car was wagging its tail under braking and it almost caught him out. It's offered up a glimmer of hope to Rob Garofal, who's going to seize the opportunity, and he's going to sneak through up the inside and take the position away. So Mark Elman started this lap in 8th position. He certainly lost the place, and I think Rob Garofal might have gained a couple on this lap, because he started the lap in 10th place, and I think he might come through in 8th by the end of it. So a couple of places picked up from Rob Garofal for the lead of the race. Mike Taylor might not be used to the Lamborghini. It might only be his second race in it, but he's hot on the heels of Jamie Falvey, the race leader, a GT3 BMW against a Super Trofeo specification Lamborghini. Down in towards the braking area for the old hairpin, accelerating their way up the hill, and on the first of the flying laps, Mike Taylor was actually the quickest. Once the safety car had peeled in, the first completed lap at full race conditions, Mike Taylor was quicker than Jamie Falvey. So he is pushing hard in this one. He had a very small spin yesterday, which didn't cause them any major problems. They're running second in the race at the time, Mike Taylor, but he spun down to third. However, he still led Group GTC. It was still the first of the GTC cars home as they again come out of Coppice Corner and start to work their way in towards the left and the right flick once more at the Fogarty S's. Be careful with the track limits at that particular corner, particularly now with the painted surfaces as well in these wet conditions. Any running of those Pirelli tyres onto the painted curbs is soon going to remind you that the car is not going to be particularly compliant. So back out of Melbourne Hairpin. He's closed again on this lap without question. I don't think the transponder's fully working on the number 4 car, because it's not giving us a sector time for that car, but to the naked eye he looks closer at the end of this lap. He was 6 tenths behind, 0.66 of a second behind the race leader last time through. This time through, as they come over the start finish line, he is 0.3 of a second behind the race leader, so 3 tenths gained. And is Mike Taylor going to look for the lead at Redgate? No, he's going to tuck himself behind the BMW. They'd like the win, but more importantly, the championship points come for winning your group, so it doesn't matter if they don't win the race overall. As long as they are the first GTC car home, you still get the same amount of points. But a race win this weekend would be good for them. However, Jamie Falvey and Paul Fullick will take over the ex-Century Motorsport BMW that's now owned and operated by Team Brit. Will want to try and make it a double on their debut weekend in GT Cup. Through Schwantz, up towards McLean's Corner, and then from there start to climb very slightly uphill again in towards Coppice Corner. which is really blind on entry. You have to commit to the entry point before you can actually see where the curb is, and then get on the throttle, feed that throttle back as you exit the corner. Don't plant your foot straight on the throttle, feed it in these tricky conditions. And a great job being done by both Jamie Falvey and Mike Taylor, who at the moment I would say looks the quicker of the two, but I think is just cautious that if he tries something and it doesn't work, then there's a long way to go in this race. There's still an hour and a half to go in towards the braking area for the Melbourne hairpin. Again, wide line taken in by Mike Taylor, still trying to seek out the grip, try and work out whether just offline, the usual racing line, has a bit more grip available to you. And again, that wide line taken in towards Goddard's from him. Try and straighten up the exit and get on the power as soon as you can. It's still the BMW that leads the way from, in second position, Mike Taylor, who this time is looking as though he might go for the lead of the race. No, he decides again that it's not quite going to happen this time at Redgate Corner. They are both, however, slowing each other up, and they are now getting caught by the third placed Audi in the hands of Peter Ursig. Peter on that lap set the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 38.626. He was almost a second quicker than the car ahead of him in the hands of Mike Taylor. So keep an eye on that Audi. It's slowly just edging up. And remember, that Audi, it will have pro driver Marcus Clutton on board for part 2 of the race. Because he's a pro driver, it does mean they will stop for longer. So in reality, that Audi will be stopping for 25 seconds longer than the cars currently in first and second place come the pit window. And that pit window, by the way, opens in this 100-minute race between the 50th and the 59th minute of the race. So in other words, the earliest anybody can pit, if you look at the timer, the countdown timer at the top of your screens, is when there's 50 minutes to go. That's the earliest anybody can dive for the pit lane, with that sole exception we know of the Mercedes, which will be coming in because of its issues that it's got. And that has been special dispensation allowed for them to pit more than once to try and get the car towards the checkered flag. So in towards the braking area for the Melbourne hairpin. This is where Mike Taylor takes a very different line to Jamie Falvey. It's whichever works for you and your particular car and whatever you feel confident with, but they are hunting each other down. And as a spin, that's Jack Gadd, I'm afraid, who's had a spin coming through the Fogarty S's. The Lamborghini, prepared by Top Cats Racing, he's turned in towards the left-hand element of the S's. The tail end of the car has come around on him, so through goes Paul Bailey, through goes Rob Garofal. Jack Gadd grabs a gear, gets going, and has tumbled down through the order. He was running in 4th position, but that is going to drop him down to, I would say, probably 8th at the end of this lap. Lead advantage is now stabilised a bit. Last time through, Jamie Falvey popped in his best lap of the race so far, 1:38.847, still a couple of tenths shy of the best lap we've seen in the race overall, which is still with the 3rd place Audi at this stage. So GT3 leader is the overall race leader. The GTC leader is in 2nd place at this stage. Paul Bailey in 5th leads Group GTO. Rob Garofal has now moved up to 6th place. He's the Group GTH leader in the early stages. And the Group GTA leader is going to be the number 24 BMW, which is in the hands of Neil Wallace for this first part of the race. Still see the spray all the way around the circuit, so even on the normal racing line, it's nowhere near dry at all at this stage. You can still see the water coming out the back of the cars. You'll start to maybe in another 5 or 10 minutes start to see a slightly drier line, but the cold conditions do mean it's going to take a while to get rid of the water. The breeze will help, of course it will, but we've got not a great deal of sunshine around Donington Park at the moment to aid the drying. Number 25 car is James Waring. He'll be looking in his mirrors at this stage because he'll see that he's got a car chasing him around. As for Jack Gadd following his spin, well, his next target in his recovery drive is going to be Frank Morris. So Jack Gadd had dropped to 9th. I thought it might be 8th, but he's actually dropped to 9th and has fallen behind Frank Morris. And already the traffic. Dennis Story moves out of harm's way and allows race-leading BMW and Lamborghini to go through, and it's another new fastest lap of the race for Peter Ursig in 3rd place. The Audi is closing 1 minute 38.153 from Peter Ursig, meaning that on that particular lap he was 0.6 of a second quicker than the car that was there in 2nd place, and was about 7/8 of a second quicker than the race leader. Jack Gadd gains the place. Melbourne hairpin up the inside of Frank Morris. Frank, who had a small off on the first corner yesterday, but had a brilliant recovery drive. Spoke to him earlier on and he said he really enjoyed that recovery drive in his fight through the order before he handed the car over to what was Jamie Stanley yesterday. James Pickford, his regular co-driver, is on driving duties today. I think James was racing up at Donington Park yesterday, so couldn't make it. So another driver hopped in. So it'll be James Pickford, former British touring car racer some years ago with Seat, who's going to take over that car for part 2. Say James is a pro driver. I don't think in terms of the championship he's classed as a pro. So our race leader, Jamie Falvey, was just about a second up the road from Mike Taylor last time through. Mike Taylor has definitely been caught by Peter Ursig, because Peter Ursig was 1.7 seconds behind the Lamborghini at the start of this lap. He is going to be much, much closer to him at the end of this lap. The top 3 were separated by 2 3/4 seconds when they started this lap, and they have certainly concertinaed up. Still, the order remains the same. Nobody's still quite close enough to attack each other. But Peter Ursig has again dipped into the 1:38 that time through. He was 0.7 of a second quicker than the Lamborghini. He was half a second quicker than the race leader, so he's still the quickest car out there, and that's why now the top 3 that were covered by 1.7 seconds are now covered by 2.7 seconds are now covered by 2.2. So you can see the rate of close there on the screens. Peter Ursig, the last 3 laps have been quicker than Mike Taylor, so he's been chipping away at that gap. Long, long way to go in this race yet still though. And of course we've got that pit window, which is still a good chunk of time away yet, over half an hour away yet before any cars are going to be in the pit lane during the pit window. And of course, remember, the Audi needs to crack on because it knows it's going to have to stop when Peter hops out of the car and hands it over to Marcus Clutton. As a professional driver, Marcus Clutton, 195 seconds that car in theory will be stationary in the pit lane, compared to the BMW and the Lamborghini, which will both be stationary for 170. So 8 laps completed. Lap number 9, Peter Ursig matching the same pace as Jamie Falvey, the race leader, through the first sector. He's very slightly quicker than the race leader through the second. I'm not sure the gap has changed a great deal. It was 2.2, but there's traffic up the road, and that's Doc Bush that is going to be lapped for too much longer by Jamie Falvey. I think Jamie, rather fortuitously, is going to meet the traffic down the Wheatcroft Straight, so Doc Bush will move out of harm's way. The next car they're going to catch is going to be Ben Taylor, who we caught up with earlier on this weekend. And is this the opportunity for Mike Taylor to try and wiggle his way through? So catching the back marker in the middle of Redgate Corner is less than ideal. So Mike Taylor has closed up a little bit onto Jamie Falvey. Peter Ursig met the back markers in the wrong place, so he's lost time now relative to those that he was hunting down. He's still not able to get past Doc Bush's Porsche this time. Is he going to have a go at the inside at the old hairpin? Yes, he does. Sneaks up the inside of the Porsche, and then just has to get on the brakes to avoid contact with the Audi. And again, that sort of slows him through that part of the circuit. So he's lost time, but the one good thing is he got past the back markers, and now he can crack on again. And whilst he was unfortunate with the timing of where he met the back markers there relative to the front 2, you can guarantee at some point in this race the table will spin. All of a sudden Jamie Falvey and Mike Taylor will meet traffic in the wrong spot, and they'll lose time, and Peter Ursig will catch back with them, I'm sure. Down the straight they'll go. Jamie Falvey through and past the Ginetta of Sven Christian. Mike Taylor also takes the opportunity to wiggle his way by, having posted the fastest lap of the race last time through, just as they met the traffic. 1:38.031 now is the fastest lap of the race. Extra championship points are available if you set the fastest lap in your individual group. Teams are busy looking on, and that looks as though that's Team Britt and Paul Fullick there, watching the screens, looking at the data, looking at the times, trying to understand what's going on in the car, what changes might be needed in the pit stop, because there is a bit of time in the pit stop with 170 seconds in the pit stop, so 2 and a bit minutes to tweak a few things on the car, whether that be changing the tyres if the circuit dries sufficiently, or maybe just a couple of turns on the dampers on the cars just to try and stiffen them up if the circuit dries. So down through the Craner curves, 10 laps completed, lead advantage just 0.7 of a second still at this stage. Remember, the cars are in different groups. Group GT3 car leads the way, a Group GTC car in second place, and then it's another Group GT3 car there in third. And if you're wondering what the individual groups are, well, Group GT3 is for cars homologated and running to GT3 specifications, so a bit like you would see in British GT or around the world generally, GT World Challenge Europe. Cars that run in Group GTC are challenge specification cars, which are less than 5 years old. So that could be a car that might be racing in McLaren Artori Trophy, it might be a Ferrari Challenge car, it could be a Porsche Carrera Cup car, it could be a Lamborghini Super Trofeo car, any of those. If it's a slightly older Challenge car, though, more than 5 years old, that will drop from Group GTC into Group GTB for the older Challenge cars and modified saloons. Group GTH is for homologated GT4 cars, and you're looking at one of those now, Rob Garofall at the wheel of the GT4 specification Ginetta. And Group GTA, which we also have Ginettas in, but those Ginettas are for older homologations of GT4 and lower specification Cup and Challenge cars. So those could be cars that maybe raced in Ginetta Super Cup a couple of years ago, or are GT4 Ginettas but older spec homologation. Another flash of the lights, and that is Neil Wallace's BMW, who looks to have a very small amount of damage to the front right-hand corner of that BMW. Yes, the bumper is askew on it, so maybe he's just clonked a tyre stack heading round through the Fogarty S's. He moves out of the way and allows the GT3 BMW to go through and past. Now, where is Mike Taylor going to meet the BMW? It's going to be on the exit of the old hairpin, so the Lamborghini hasn't really lost any time. He was just over a second behind last time through. We've had another new fastest lap of the race in these drying conditions, as you would expect, and that is Peter Ursig. First car into the 1 minute 37s, and comfortably so. 1 minute 37.699 from Peter Ursig that time through, but he's 4.2 seconds adrift of those cars that he was within touching distance of a few laps ago. The back markers really did have a role to play, and Peter Ursig will be hoping he can clear the BMW. Flash of the lights lets him know that he's coming. Neil Wallace will see the Audi coming through. He's braking on the wetter part of the circuit, gets off the brakes, turns the car in towards the Fogarty S's, but Peter Ursig can continue to press on in what was a good first sector time from him. Not a bad second sector time, but running at a similar pace to the race leader at this stage. 78 minutes of the race to go. BMW from Lamborghini, from Audi, from Ginetta, from Mercedes, from Ginetta is the top six. Looks to be a little bit less spray coming out of the back of the cars now. Visually down the straight you can see, and there straight away, there is straight away the sign that the circuit is drying, because Mike Taylor, looking for the wet parts of the circuits there, he can feel that the tyres are starting to overheat a little bit, and anything you can do just to dive onto the wetter parts of the circuit just cools those tyres down a little bit, because the Pirellis are being asked a lot of questions here. They're being worked hard, and if you want those tyres to hang on for your stint, then anything you can do to try and cool them down is going to be good. Mike Taylor doing the sensible thing there down the Wheatcroft Straight. He's got traffic to deal with, which is going to be the car of John Ingram. He's dealt with that McLaren Artura. Good to see Jolt Racing, and good to catch up with Rupert Williams earlier. Back for a full season in GT Cup this year. We've seen him in GT Cup previously in a earlier iteration of McLaren. 570S was when they first appeared, and then last year we saw them at a couple of rounds, but they concentrated on British GT. This year, no British GT for them. It's all about GT Cup, and again Mike Taylor straight away onto the wet part of the circuit, cool the tyres. Peter Ursig trying to sneak through up the inside of the McLaren so he doesn't lose a great deal of time as he tries to pass the slower traffic, and he is through, and this looks as though it's another solid lap from Peter Ursig. He's pushing hard. He's now 3.6 seconds adrift of the second placed Lamborghini, which, as I say, you know, their main focus for the likes of Mike Taylor and Charlie Digby will be win GTC. Finish as high as you can, absolutely, that's of course what they want to do, and of course they'll want to win, but they know they're up against GT3 machinery, which maybe hasn't got quite as much power as the Lamborghini, but it's got substantively better aero, and is arguably a GT3 car, an easier car to drive than the likes of that number 4 Lamborghini. Down in towards the old hairpin, Frank Morris, Mark Ellman, and then the Ginetta of James Waring are all together. That will be fighting over 8th, 9th and 10th. So it looks like Frank Morris has gained a place there over Mark Ellman, because Mark Ellman was in 8th place at the start of this lap, so he's now dropped into 9th position and is now feeling the pinch a little bit from the car that sits behind him. So up towards the braking area for Coppice they will go. Now, the circuit had been drying. I've now just heard that down at the Melbourne hairpin, the rain might be coming back in again. So we'll have to wait and see. You see the windscreen wipers busy beavering away, and I think James Waring is going to gain a place here on Mark Ellman. The two Ginettas sliding around on the damp surface, and those clouds that were in the distance that we weren't sure were going to blow away look as though they might just be depositing some more rain down at the Melbourne hairpin. So the tricky thing for the drivers now is, you know, you've worked out where your braking point needs to be, but of course you get down there the next lap and all of a sudden you haven't got the same amount of grip because the rain is back, and you can see straight away there's more spray at that part of the circuit than there is, say, up at McLean's or Coppice Corner. The direction of the wind, it's blowing sideways across the circuit, so if you're looking at the screen now, it's blowing from right to left, so sideways across the straight, and the rest of the circuit is looking as though now it's starting to get a few spots of rain as well. Looking out my commentary box windows, yes, it's now raining on the start-finish line, and that cloud of rain will continue down to the old hairpin, up towards McLean's and up towards Coppice. So just as the drivers were putting in quicker times, the times are going to drop back off again. They're still in the 1:38, which is where the front runners have been for the last few laps, but drop off in the times might be coming up in the next couple of laps. 74 minutes of the race to go, which means it's still 24 minutes plus before the pit window opens for anybody. If you were watching the pit stop race yesterday, you know we have different pit stop windows for one batch of cars compared to the others. In the 100-minute races, no, it's a single window where everybody comes in, and you can choose when you want to come in within that 9-minute pit window in reality, between the 50th and the 59th minute of the race. As the cars now head out of Coppice Corner, there's more traffic to deal with, and it's another Ginetta that will be being overtaken. That is James Waring that's now being picked off. The car in 9th place now going a lap down, as Jamie Falvey in the Team Brit BMW works his way past that traffic, and you can see that he's just had a better run through the traffic, or the conditions are more suited to him, because he's now 2 seconds up the road from the Lamborghini of Mike Taylor, who's doing a good old job in second place of still comfortably leading Group GTC. The car that's second in Group GTC is down in 4th at the moment, which is Bertie Bream, and that is the best part of 44 seconds adrift of him. Now more traffic again to deal with. Frank Morris's Group GTC Lamborghini, prepared by JMH Automotive. Jason Hughes and the team will be the next of those that will be dealt with by our race leader. Mike Taylor also dealing with James Waring to get past, because he needs to crack on. He's still got the Audi of Peter Ursig just 1.3 seconds adrift of him. John Ingram in the Jolt Racing McLaren just turning his way out of Goddard's. If he looks in his mirrors, he'll see he's got the Group GTA leading Ginetta behind, which is Dan Quintero, who starts this race in the Pink Panther liveried car. Such an easy car to spot, that car. It looks like nothing else on the grid. It looks absolutely fantastic as the Pink Panther car. Dan Quintero first appeared racing in, I'm not sure whether he came through Caterham Academy. He certainly raced Caterhams for a good number of years, did Dan Quintero. But the last few years it's been this Ginetta that he's raced. Seen him out racing some historic cars as well, I think, down at Brands Hatch in the past. But this Ginetta that he shares with, for this weekend, Andrew Perry, went to victory in Group GTA yesterday, and it is leading Group GTA today by about 9.5 seconds at this stage from what will be Neil Wallace in the SVG Motorsport BMW. And it was that BMW that actually qualified on pole in Group GTA. That was the fastest Group GTA car in qualifying, but Ginetta just seemed to have the race pace at this stage, and they will both stop for similar amounts of time. The BMW will stop for 5 seconds shorter than the pink Ginetta. It'll be 170 seconds for Dan Quintero giving way to Andrew Perry. It'll be 165 seconds for Neil Wallace giving way to Ian Astley. The progress of Jack Gadd continuing. He is now starting to close in on the car we've got running as the leader in Group GTO, which is Paul Bailey. He shares the car as ever with David Brabham, sharing with Ross Wiley for a good few years. He's also had Andy Schultz as a co-driver for a good few years as Paul Bailey, but the last couple of years, 3 years probably, has been David Brabham. I'm not sure we're going to see the Brabham out this year. Whether we see the Mercedes for the full season, we'll wait and see. It's a new car to Paul for this weekend in terms of competition, so it's got a few small things they're working their way through, which means that we're likely to see that car head into the pits for an extra splash of fuel to be put in. Plus then of course they'll have to come back in for a second stop for the driver change, and we could potentially see that car come back in again for another splash of fuel towards the end, but all of that is understood by the race officials. So if it comes in early, it won't pick up a penalty for pitting outside of a window as such, because the main driver change will take place during the window. Innovation Racing watching on. Simon Griffiths' team, 3 cars out in GT Cup this year, racing in British GT. They're also in the process of putting together a scholarship programme which will see drivers get a free funded drive in the 2027 GT Cup Championship. They've had a really busy winter with lots and lots of testing being done, different drivers trying the cars, and one going really well in their car at the moment, which is James Waring, who'll hand the car over to Sam Branston for part 2 of the race. Jack Gadd, is he going to gain a place over Paul Bailey? That will put him back to 5th position if he can. Paul Bailey is just going to give him room as they head round through Redgate Corner. So Jack Gadd, who was 4th before he had the spin at the Fogarty S's, is now back to 5th. So slowly working his way through the order is Jack Gadd, but he is now 30 seconds adrift of gaining another place, I'm afraid, because Bertie Bream is a long way up the road. And as for Jack Gadd, he will hand over to Dan Brown, 160 seconds in the pit lane. And the car of Bertie Bream handing over to Luke Bennett. They'll remain stationed for 150 seconds. So even the car that's 30 seconds up the road should gain a further 10 seconds come the pit stops, which are still a chunk away as yet. Still just about 20 minutes away before the pit window opens for anybody. Jamie Falvey still leading the way. Those few spits of rain, I think, have disappeared again, because the first sector on this lap for Jamie Falvey is the quickest first sector we've seen from anybody. You can see again closing on him is going to be Mike Taylor. They're still trying to seek out the drier parts of the circuit, which suggests that, yep, the rain has disappeared. It's starting to dry up again. The lap times beginning to come down again. We're still in the 1 minute 38, but we're in the low 1 minute 38s now. So those few spits of rain meant that the lap times just dropped away by half a second, 3/4 of a second for a lap or two. Now it looks as though that small little bank of cloud has disappeared. There'll be more traffic up the road to deal with, which is going to be Paul Bailey's car in 6th place, then Jack Gadd's in 5th position. And those are the next cars that our leading pair are going to want to lap. Now, where is Jamie Falvey going to meet the traffic this time? He's been quite fortunate where he's met it previously. He's not going to clear it by the time they get down towards the end of the Wheatcroft Straight. Paul Bailey, you can see him just looking in his mirrors there. He saw the flash of the lights. He's just making sure that he can take his usual racing line in towards Redgate Corner. And then Jamie Falvey will close on him as they head down through the Craner curves. Is he going to be able to dispatch the Mercedes a lap down before the old hairpin? Jamie Falvey will want to try and clear the traffic, because he knows he's under pressure. And the reason he's under pressure is because the car in 2nd place, Mike Taylor, has just set the fastest lap of the race we've seen so far. 1 minute 37.4 exactly from Mike Taylor. He caught Paul Bailey, though, in the wrong place. So from a quick lap, he's now just had to give up a little bit of time to safely negotiate the traffic. Paul Bailey can't get out of the way. You've just got to, as the driver that's catching the traffic, wait for the opportunity and then work your way through and pass safely. And then for Paul Bailey, of course, another car queuing up behind, also going well. It's going to be Peter Ursig at the wheel of the Audi. So the top 3 aren't quite with each other as yet, as Jamie Falvey now dives decisively up the inside of Jack Gadd, who lets him go. And Peter Ursig, I think, has had a brilliant lap this time at the wheel of his Audi R8. So he is closing, ever closing on Mike Taylor, as he was doing in the first part of the race before they met the traffic, and then he was just briefly compromised where he met the traffic in the wrong place. So another place gained by Mike Taylor as he goes past Jack Gadd. Peter Ursig will try and weave his way through, which he does on the approach towards Goddard, so no time lost there by Peter Ursig. Accelerates his way on towards the straight. So BMW leads, Lamborghini leads Audi, all of them heading over to the drier parts of the circuit, the wet parts of the circuit, to try and cool those tyres down. They'll be feeling the fact that there's not quite as much grip as you ought to be getting out of them. They'll feel the car moving around as the tread blocks begin to overheat and start to be flexible. And again, you can just see there mid-corner going down through the Craner curves that Mike Taylor again just had to put an extra bit of steering correction in just to make sure the car was settled. Further down through the order, Neil Wallace is about to be passed by Bertie Bream, so that's the 4th place Ginetta going through and past the car that's 2nd in Group GTN, running in 13th place overall. And we'll run you down through the class leaders again once more, or the group leaders. The group leader of Group GT3 is the overall leader, which is Jamie Falvey. The leader of Group GTC is 2nd, which is Mike Taylor. Look down into 6th position, Paul Bailey in the Mercedes still leads Group GTO, and then as we look down towards Group GTH, that is still the number 65 Ginetta of Rob Garofal, who is down in 7th place, and in 12th position the pink Ginetta, Dan Quintero, car number 235 from Raceworks Motorsport, is the leader of Group GTA. So those are your group leaders at this stage. If you claim a win in this one, and then when we head to Snetterton in a few weeks' time, the first of the pit stops race there, you'll pick up success seconds. So if you win your group here, you would pick up an extra 15 success seconds in the pit stop race at Snetterton. If you were second, it'd be an extra 12, and if you were third, it'd be an extra 3. And that's Mike Taylor, who has had, by the look of things, some damage to the front of his car. So Mike Taylor crawling his way in towards the pit lane, I'm afraid. Didn't quite see what happened. Was there any contact with Peter Ursig, or was that a mistake of his own? Doc Bush is also pointing in the wrong direction. So there may well have been some car-to-car contact there. Mike Taylor limps his way into the pit lane. Doc Bush gets the Porsche pointing in the right direction. But I'm afraid for the number 4 car from Triple M Motorsport, Mike Taylor and Charlie Digby, they are coming in towards the pit lane, as is Doc Bush in the Team Parker Racing Porsche as well. So 2 cars into the pit lane. The Lamborghini with damage that was involved, and there may well possibly have been another car as well that was involved, but we'll have to wait and see. Possibly car number 247, Ben Taylor, might have been in a similar part of the circuit. So both the Porsche and the Lamborghini are down at pit lane exit end. Doc Bush goes up onto the air jacks, mechanics filling around the tail end of the car. Triple M Motorsport put the Lamborghini up on the air jacks and are going to patch the front of it by the look of things. So they're just working away around the wheel to tidy up that damage. Then out will come the gaffer tape, I would have thought, and try and patch the Lamborghini up, as long as everything wheel-wise and suspension-wise is still pointing in the right direction. But that is a real shame. That now hands the lead of Group GTC to the number 8 Ginetta, and there you can see the damage to the front right-hand quarter of that Lamborghini, the broken bodywork, trying to prise bits of metal off the tyre, and only once they have effected the repairs and have satisfied the scrutineers that that car is safe to go back out, they'll probably have to bolt another tyre back onto it as well and then get it out. Doc Bush is making his way back out, so that was a well-effected stop by Team Parker Racing, whatever the problem was that brought the Porsche into the pit lane in the first place. I'm afraid for Mike Taylor and Charlie Digby, they're going to continue to tumble down through the order. That now means that the Audi of Peter Ursig is up to second and is 2.4 seconds shy of the race leader, having lapped only a tenth of a second quicker than the BMW last time through. So the gap is, you know, a small one, but it is going the right way as far as Peter Ursig is concerned. Up towards the braking area for Coppice Corner. Can he close any further on to the BMW? We'll have to wait and see. You can still see the spray coming out the back of the car. He ran wide onto the curb as well, coming out of Coppice Corner. So Peter Ursig closing in to try and catch right up with the BMW. So Fulvey still leads, Peter Ursig second, and I gather what might have happened up at Goddard's, as back out onto the circuit goes the slightly battered Lamborghini. That's not going to improve the handling of it at all. With that gaping hole in the front and a missing dive plane, that's going to be a difficult car to handle. It's not quite going to have the handling that it did. I think what might have happened up at Goddard's was that Doc Bush spun, and then the concertina effect then took place as other cars tried to avoid the stricken Porsche, and that was where the Lamborghini may well have made contact with a Ginetta. So it's just one of those unfortunate things. Wrong place, wrong time, I'm afraid. So the number 4 Lamborghini back in the race. Now he had, of course, lapped many cars, so a lot of the cars that came through and over the start-finish line were sort of getting gaps back. Car number 4 and 75 under investigation. So maybe that was what pitched Doc Bush into a spin, was contact with the Lamborghini, but the Porsche, there's no obvious signs of any damage to it at all. It looks as though it's come off fairly lightly. Our race leader continues for the meantime, with about just over 10 minutes to go until the pit window. Just coming up to lap Neil Wallace in the SVG Motorsport BMW and place another lap on it. So our race leader is on lap number 23. The BMW is on lap number 21 at this stage, so that's the second lap now of the BMW. Peter Ursig in second place has closed the gap. He was half a second quicker last time through, which means the lead gap between BMW and Audi is now down to just 2 seconds between the pair of them. And Peter Ursig has just set the best second sector of anybody in this particular race. So the middle part of the lap he has gone through quicker than anybody has done so far, and he's gone through that middle part of the lap a full second quicker than the race leading BMW. So the Audi is going well here. Visually to the naked eye, it's nothing like a 2-second gap anymore. It's now down to 1.4 between the pair of them. So over the start-finish line, the fight is on. This is not just the lead battle, it's for the lead of Group GT3 as well. You can see the blue windscreen headers to the car, indicating that they run in Group GT3. Lighter blue would be a different group, but darker blue for the Group GT3 machines. Down through the Craner curves, again another little small wiggle from the BMW. Peter Ursig pushing hard, another 10th gain through the first sector, which brings you from the start-finish line to roughly part the way down through the Craner curves is the first sector. The second sector brings you from that point of the Craner curves roughly to where the braking area is, and the old Dunlop Bridge used to be, near the exhibition centre, so part the way down the straight that they'll be heading towards now. So Peter Ursig with us 10th quicker through the first third of the lap. Through the second third of the lap, they'll be braking the beam in around about 4 or 5 seconds time. Let's just have a quick look and see whether Jamie Falvey is quick through the second sector. He is quicker by about 0.4 of a second than Peter Ursig through the second sector, so the gap's not going to change much next time through. And there goes the 24/7 Ginetta in the hands of Ben Taylor. That car's running down in 15th place as things stand. That puts it 5th in Group GTH. Just ahead of it on the road is the car that leads Group GTH overall, which is Rob Garofal, full lap ahead of that Ginetta behind him. Rob Garofal will be handing the car over to Harry Ewell for part 2 of the race. And they'll just have to decide as to when they want to come in, because the pit window opens 50th minute of the race and closes at the 59th minute of the race. So out of Redgate Corner, that's now 24 laps completed by the Team Brit driver Jamie Falvey. Paul Fullick will take over. We saw Paul have a good stint in the car yesterday. He'll be watching on in the pit lane. Probably just about to, in the next few minutes, put the balaclava and the crash helmet on, make sure that he's put his earpieces in as well, so that he can communicate with the team on the pit to car radio. But so far, a bit like yesterday in the shorter 50-minute pit stop race, it's so far all gone to plan for Team Brit in what are tricky conditions. Damp all the way through, a few little spots of rain, getting a bit more blue sky now above our commentary position. And you can see again, whilst there's rooster tails out the back of the car, that's because largely Jamie Falvey is seeking out the drier parts of the circuit still, and it's working at the moment because he has increased the gap again in the last few laps to Peter Ursig, who's now fallen adrift to 3.3 seconds away from the race leader. However, there's more traffic to deal with. Dan Quintero stays out of harm's way in the number 135 Ginetta, allows the race leader to squeeze his way through, because of course for Dan Quintero and Andrew Perry will take over that Ginetta. Their focus is to try and maintain what they have at the moment, which is the lead of Group GTA, 12th overall. There aren't going to be that many cars on the lead lap before too much longer, because the car that's third, Bertie Bream, is the next car our race leader is going to catch. So the 2 GT3 cars, as you would expect, going well and catching pretty much all of the GTC field and passing them now. Mike Taylor would have been the exception to that had there not have been the incident that occurred and the damage now to that Lamborghini, which has seen it rejoin down in 10th position and 4th in group at the moment. Ursig up the inside of Dan Quintero, doesn't want to lose any further time to Jamie Falvey, the race leader. 2/10 he lost through the first sector just whilst he was dealing with that traffic, and he'll lose a couple more tenths, I would have thought, through the middle sector, which was just when he finally managed to squeeze through and past the Ginetta. But for our race leader, there'll also be traffic up the road, and that will be the third place car of Bertie Bream, who'll hand it over to Luke Bennett for part 2 of the race. So they start to accelerate their way, and again all over on the left-hand side of the circuit, the wetter part, trying to keep the Pirellis dry. 55 minutes of racing still to go, with a bit of change in this one. And now 25 laps already chalked into the book. So up towards the third place car, the Group GTC leading number 8 Ginetta is about to be placed a lap down. That's one of the 3 cars that Innovation Racing have got in the entry list for this weekend. Jamie Falvey flashes the lights, heads in towards the braking area for Goddard's. Bertie Bream, former Porsche racer, sees him coming, lets him go through, and even then it doesn't stop for Jamie Falvey. You get rid of one car, there's another one you need to deal with before too much longer, and the next car will be John Ingram at the wheel of the Jolt Racing McLaren Artura. So in towards the braking area for Redgate. Race leader should meet that car on the exit, should clear that by the time they get towards Hollywood. So yeah, he's able to sneak his way through and places a further lap on the Jolt Racing McLaren. And that's a difficult thing when you've got race leaders trying to lap some cars, and then you've got Bertie Bream, who's just been lapped, trying also to lap that car. Things can get tight on occasions, and that might be what happens when Peter Ursig meets them, because Bertie Bream is about to lap the McLaren and the Ginetta is about to be lapped by the Audi. So up towards McLean's corner, they will thread their way. Still the same order, still BMW from Audi. Peter Ursig needs to try and deal with these 2 bits of traffic before he gets towards Coppice corner ideally, but I think Bertie Bream also wants to deal with the traffic he's trying to place a lap on as well. So can Peter Ursig sneak through at the wheel of the Audi? The one thing he won't want to do is trip over the traffic, and I think he's just bided his time there. So he gets past John Ingram in a straight line. He won't clear the Ginetta of Bertie Bream until the exit of the Fogarty S's, and on the run down in towards the braking area for the Melbourne hairpin. He should pick it off probably into the braking area, if not on the run up to the hill towards what would be Goddard's. He's not close enough down in towards the Melbourne hairpin, so he's going to sit behind the Ginetta. The Ginetta does move out the way though, so good driving by Bertie Bream. Sees him coming. Yep, okay, he's being lapped, but the important part and thing for that Ginetta is hang on to the lead of Group GTC. Doesn't matter if you're being lapped by a GT3 car, let it go, give up 1/10 of a second. You've still got a very, very comfortable lead in Group GTC. They have the best part of 28 seconds between themselves and the car that's second in Group GTC, 4th overall, which is the recovering Jack Gadd. So Jamie Falvey will be heading towards the end of his stint before too much longer. The pit window will be opening in around about 3 minutes time, is the earliest we can see any cars come into the pit lane area. Sunshine is coming out as well, and all of a sudden there is less and less spray coming out of the tail end of the cars. Now the lap times that were in the 1:37 have now dropped into the 1:39s and the 1:40s, and as I say, that at some point there's a crossover of time where you know that the wet tyre is not the one to be on a drying track. You swap to the slick because it still might be damp, but you know the slick will be quicker once you've got the heat into it. The difficulty is that from my commentary position, can't really see the clouds that will be blowing in from the southwest. And the teams will also be looking at that, looking at their weather forecast apps and trying to work out what the remaining 52 minutes might look like weather-wise. The Mercedes of Paul Bailey back up into 5th position. So that's the car that is the sole runner in Group GTO this weekend. It hasn't been into the pits as yet, as we thought it might do in the early stage of the race, so they might be able to get through to the pit window opening before they can change their drivers and might have to put a splash of fuel in the car. Battered BMW with that damage on the front end still in the hands of Neil Wallace. There is our Group GTH leading car of Rob Garofal. Good to see Rob back racing, so that leads Group GTH at this stage and is running just outside of the top 6. That's in 7th position. It's got about a 6-second gap between itself and the car that's second in the group, which is going to be the number 25 Ginetta of James Waring. So there goes Rob Garofal. I think just in the background of the shot you could just see James Waring beginning to close in. He'll be on the exhibition straight in the background of the shot before too much longer. There's Doc Porsche, there's the Ginetta, yep, just coming into the back of the shot now. So that's the car that's second in the group at this stage. So he'll be wanting to try and close in. And then of course the slightly battered Lamborghini, which seems to be performing well actually in the hands of Mike Taylor. That is down to 9th overall now, so that's gained 1 place since it rejoined the race, but it's now still 4th in the group. Our Group GTA leading Ginetta still going well in the hands of Dan Quintero. That sits there 12th overall, and has a very comfortable 31.5 second lead between itself and the SVG Motorsport BMW of Neil Wallace. So Dan will hand the car over to Andrew Perry, who was going well yesterday in that car. Neil Wallace will hop out of the BMW and hand it over to Ian Astley and see whether they can try and close the deficit a bit, but they will both stop for a very similar amount of time. I think the Ginetta stops for 5 seconds longer than the BMW, so they're not going to take big chunks out of that advantage at all. So 29 laps now completed by our race leader, and if I've got the math right, that means that the pit window should now be open. So Peter Ursig comes over the start-finish line. He's going to continue round for at least one further lap before potentially he might hand the car over to Marcus Clutton. And then the next big question will be, can we see the pit activity, and are any of the teams going to roll the dice and opt to change onto a slick tyre during that pit stop? At the moment, the track still looks a bit too wet for slicks for me, but the drivers will know. And particularly, you know, where you're putting in a pro driver like Marcus Clutton, you know, he'll be able to cope with slicks on a wet and a damp track far better than some of the newer drivers. So the likes of Jamie Folvey and Paul Fullick having their first race weekend in the BMW, a bit more of a risk involved there as to whether you swap the car from wet tyres onto slicks. Paul Bailey is in, so right at the front end of the window that car has come in. So Paul about to hop out of the car, door closes. They'll then be able to refuel the car once the driver is out, and then a splash of fuel goes into the Mercedes, and then once that is done, David Brabham will be hopping on board. It looks as though there's another car coming in, and that is number 11 is coming in, which will be Sven Christian, to hand over to the Sporting Enhanced driver Hadley Simpson. So I'm not surprised that that one has come in at the sharp end of the window. So Triple M are bringing one in as well, because I can see the lollipop waving, and indeed in is coming Mike Taylor to hand over to Bertie Bream. And we've also got another one in as well. 24/7 are in, so that's Ben Taylor to hand over to Charlie Benson. Mark Ellman is also in as well to hand the car over to Cameron Pratt-Thompson. And then it looks as though in the background of the shot, was that Peter Ursig I saw coming in the Audi? I think it was, you know. Just wait and see. I can hear car coming down below my commentary position. But, yep, the Audi is in. So, not surprised again that is another one that has come in at the sharp end of the window. It's going to have to stop for substantively longer, 195 seconds stationary in reality. Peter Ursig out of the car. Marcus Clutton just getting ready to hop in. He's on fire duty actually, so Marcus Clutton, the incoming driver, you can see him stood at the back of the car there with the fire extinguisher in the familiar blue and black helmet colours of Marcus. First churn of fuel is in, second churn of fuel is in, gravity fed, but it's breathed as well, so it really does dump the fuel in very quickly. And in goes the third tune of fuel, and you can see just how quickly that fuel level is going down in what is a dry brake fuel system as well, so there's no leakage of any fuel. Now that refuelling is done, back off fire duty goes Marcus Clutton, hops into the car, and as I thought, it's still too wet out there for slicks at this stage, so they are just adjusting the tyre pressures, taking a bit of pressure out of the Pirellis to bring them back into the key operating window for those tyres. And then the job for most of these drivers is going to be drive as quickly as you can, but keep those tyres cool. Try and stay on the damp parts as much as you can and try and stop the car overheating, the Pirelli's overheating. SVG are in, so Neil Wallace is in the BMW to hand over to Ian Astley. Doc Bush is about to hop in as well. He's going to remain behind the wheel of the Porsche. I think he's the oldest driver we've got in the field this weekend, Doc Bush, and he's also doing all 100 minutes himself, but he is a very quick driver and a very fit driver as well. So former motorcycle racer, but he plays squash, he swims, he cycles. He's very active indeed, is Doc Bush. Jamie Falvey's staying out for the moment though, so they're leaving him out. They will maybe get another 2 or 3 laps out of this one before they need to pull him into the pit lane and allow Paul Fullick to take over. And what a story it would be if Team Brit on their debut appearance in GT Cup could pick up wins in both the 50-minute pit stop race and the first of the 100-minute pit stop races this weekend at Donington Park. Dan Quintero is in, so Raceworks Motorsport into the pit lane for Dan Quintero. comes to a halt. He'll hop out of the car. Andrew Perry ready to jump on board the car for part 2. Plenty of time to do these pit stops as well. There's no enormous rush. Part of the reason that for these 100-minute races the pit stop are longer, A, because we've got refuelling, but B, there's a fair chunk of contingency in these pit stops as well, because that means that teams don't rush the pit stops because they're worried about running out of time. You've got time to do everything you need to do, and that makes the pit lane a safer place. The pit lane's never really safe, but it's much, much safer if you've got more time to do your pit stops. So all sensible things thought about by the Butte Motorsport organisation team. Foley's staying out for a further lap, so he's now completed 32 laps. Everybody else has only completed 30 so far, so he's a couple of laps in the lead. But of course, you know, when you're in the pit stop for the best part of 2 and a bit minutes, everybody else is going to be back with him. So Marcus Clutton is now on board the Audi, and now this will be, I think, the benchmark being set on these used wet tyres on a drying track. What can Marcus Clutton do? This is just the out lap, so we don't need to worry about this lap, but it's the first flying lap. Will give us a bit of an indication. You can see the glorious sunshine now and a bit of a drying track down through the Craner curves as well. Our race leader in the meantime is just threading his way through and past what will be James Waring's car, because I don't think that car has been into the pits as yet. No, it hasn't, so that's still the number 25 Ginetta in the hands of James Waring. Sam Branston will take over that car before too much longer, but neither BMW or Ginetta have been into the pits just as yet. And I gather, despite the beautiful sunshine that we've got down at the Melbourne Hairpin, it might be raining down through the Craner curves once more and up at Coppice Corner at the top part of the circuit. So it's blowing in again, the next little bank of cloud that's just depositing a few little bits of rain. So that if there was ever any question mark about that circuit was going to get fully dry in the race, I think it's probably being answered that no, stick on your wets, that's the best one. Right, into the pits has come Frank Morris. So James Pickford, Picky will jump on board for part 2 of the race. Now that the door is closed, refuelling can commence. So all the regulations are tightly written, so the car has to come into the pits. You should not be undoing your seatbelts until the car has come to a halt. The engine needs to be stopped, the driver needs to be out, the door needs to be closed. There needs to be somebody, whilst the refuelling is taking place, which can only happen when the door is closed, somebody stood alongside with a fire extinguisher. Should an unfortunate incident occur, you can extinguish the fire much, much quicker. And only once the refuelling has been concluded, as the final tank goes in, then can you pop the incoming driver into the car. So more traffic to be dealt with. So that is Hadley Simpson, who has just been passed by the Mercedes of David Brabham. The number 4 car now in the hands of Charlie Digby, of course, for part 2 of the race. The slightly battered Lamborghini. Now, the Lamborghini is down in 10th place at the moment. The car of David Brabham is down in 11th place at the moment, so this would be for position actually, largely because the Lamborghini was stationary for 170 seconds. It was 200 seconds that the Mercedes was stationary for as a bare minimum. So they are now fighting for position, those two cars, heading up towards the braking area for Redgate. Group GTC Lamborghini, albeit with damage, under pressure from a Group GTO Mercedes, which looks like a GT3 car, but the configuration of the car, the mechanical configuration of it, means that it's not at all the GT3. It will be running in GTO this weekend. So Marcus Clutton, I was talking about what the first flying lap might look like. He did his out lap. First flying lap he's on at the moment. Absolute best first sector, absolute best second. Surely going to be the fastest lap of the race, and just as the race leader comes into the pit lane. So Jamie Falvey in to hand over to Paul Fullick. We've also got Rob Garofall in to hand over to Harry Ewell. And first flying lap from Marcus Clutton, 1 minute 35.121. So that is nearly two and a bit seconds quicker than anybody in the first part of the race was managing. And that's why, when you have a pro driver sharing the car with you, that's why you have to stop for longer in the pits, because we all know that pro driver is going to be going quicker than the other cars out there. So by giving them a longer pit stop, that helps to neutralise everything and make it fair in reality. So because Marcus is the pro, that car stopped for 200 seconds in that car stopped for 195 seconds in total. 180 because of the pairing, an extra 15 seconds because of the success seconds from yesterday. So Paul Fullick hopping into the car. As I mentioned yesterday, he is a wheelchair user and lost one of his legs in an incident and therefore drives with hand controls. So he uses the throttle and the brake on the steering wheel as well as changing gear as well. And there is going to be a change of tyres for that car as well. So Team Brit are taking off one set of Pirelli wets and putting on another one in reality. So feedback is, yeah, let's put another set on. They don't look too bad actually, but there'll be a newer set going on which will just aid the cause for that car. And again, they've got plenty of time in which to carry out that pit stop. That BMW needs to be stationary for 150 seconds because of the driver pairing, plus an extra 20 because they won their group yesterday and won the race overall. So that's the success seconds they carry into this one. So 170 seconds stationary in the pit lane, plus 18 seconds to drive through. That gives you the full amount of time the car should be in the pit lane area. So I think pretty much that is everybody pitted now, because the pit window has just closed. BMW was already in the pits before the pit window closed, I believe. So I think that's the batch of pit stops done. We haven't as yet seen anybody in the pits more than once, other than the one Lamborghini that came in, and of course we saw Doc Bush come in, but we know why. That was because of the incident that occurred. Everybody else, the race has largely gone to plan so far. And for Marcus Clutton, first flying lap was a quick one. Purple sector 1, purple sector 2, purple sector 3, new fastest lap of the race. This lap, purple sector 1, purple sector 2. He could be on for an even faster lap of the race this time through, and we'll get a benchmark next time as to what the gap looks like between first and second place. Because remember, in the early stages of the race, when Jamie Falvey was driving the BMW and Peter Ursig was on board on the Audi, at one point Peter Ursig was within a second of the BMW and dropped back to about 5 and got it back to about 3 probably before the pit stops, 3 or 4 seconds. We know that the BMW stopped for 25 seconds shorter than the Audi. So the gap this time through, what is the gap going to be between the BMW and the Audi? It is still going to take another lap, because we need to get the BMW and the Audi back over the start-finish line at this stage. But that is another new fastest lap of the race for Marcus Clutton. And now he's in the 1 minute 34s, 1 minute 34.702 for Marcus Clutton. We saw Peter Ursig and Marcus Clutton racing in GT Cup last year. They did claim a win on the road at Snetterton, if memory serves me correctly, but there was a bit of contact that was involved, and therefore they didn't actually then, on the amended results, get the win. So they've never had an overall win in GT Cup, as far as I'm aware. And, well, Marcus Clutton knows the task in hand, and that is to catch this BMW in the hands of Paul Fullick. And the rate of close, with 37 minutes to go, we'll be able to work out at the end of this particular lap. So it's taking round about a minute and a half to do a lap, something like that. So there's going to be another 20 laps in this one, probably something like 55 laps we might end up on by the end of it. And how far away is Marcus Clutton? Because this time through Sector 1 and Sector 2, he is slightly slower than on the previous laps, so it's not going to be another new fastest lap of the race. But it's still going to be a lap that I suspect will be quicker than Paul Fullick could put in the BMW, because Paul is less familiar with GT Cup. He's less familiar with the new to the team and new to him BMW GT3. And of course, he's an AM driver. He's not a pro like Marcus Clutton, who does this for a living. So through comes the Audi over the start-finish line. The gap first to second is 39 seconds. And there's 36 minutes remaining. So he needs to close about 1.5 seconds per minute in reality. So that would be about 2.25 seconds a lap, something like that. Last time through, it was a 1 minute 35.6 from Marcus Clutton. And then we'll wait and see what the BMW comes through at. That was, its best is a 1 minute 37, so at the moment, yeah, it could well be on for Marcus Clutton. We'll keep an eye on that. It could all come down to traffic and where you meet it, and Marcus Clutton was very decisive there as he nipped through and ahead of Charlie Benson's 24/7 Motorsport Ginetta, which retired so late on in the race yesterday. Such a shame for them that it was fueling problems that caused their retirement. He dives at the inside of Hadley Simpson, who sees him coming and lets him go. Hadley, who has taken over the driving seat that should have been driven by Simon Griffiths this weekend, but Simon allowing Hadley a bit more seat time behind the wheel of one of the Team Ginettas. for sixth and 7th place. We've still got Charlie Digby fighting away with David Brabham. Still the Lamborghini managing to keep itself ahead of the Mercedes. So that's Group GTC Lamborghini fighting away with Group GTO Mercedes. Behind them is the pink Ginetta, who have now still continued to lead Group GTA in the hands of Andrew Perry. But whilst they're squabbling away out on circuit, let's go down to the pit lane, where I think Joe has caught up with Peter Ursig.
Peter Ursig, we're down here in the pit lane after what was a rapid opening sim for yourself. A bit disrupted by traffic though, and in changeable conditions. Just how was it from behind the wheel?
It wasn't too bad actually. You know, that the plan was just to try and keep as close as I could to Jamie in the first session. You know, obviously yesterday didn't quite go to plan, and I wasn't really on top of the car. But today was really good, and I was really happy. I didn't get all the traffic going my way, unfortunately. But you know, we kept Jamie on us, so really happy with the way it went. Towards the end, I was really overheating my left-hand side tyres, so I was struggling a little bit. But so I was quite pleased to give it in and pass over to Marcus, to be fair, in the end. But happy otherwise.
I was going to say, just on the conditions, it seems to be, you can see a bit of a dry in-line forming. Obviously, the weather seems, if you whichever forecast you believe, could be a bit more rain coming. Was there a thought of changing on the slicks, or was staying on wet's the way to go?
I mean, I think in reality it was probably about 10 minutes, 15 minutes too early. If you look now, there's quite a dry line, so it'd probably be slicks. But you can never tell with the Donington weather, and it could bucket down again. So, you know, through my sit, it rained quite heavy a couple of times. So yeah, it's probably slicks now, but you know, we rolled the dice and as wet as it is.
No, thanks very much, Peter. We'll let you get on watching Marcus tackle the rest of the race.
Thanks very much.
Good to hear from Peter Ursig there, and Marcus Clutton is pressing on. Another new fastest lap of the race, last time through, a 1:43.349 from him. Now remember, the rate of close was about 1.5 seconds per minute that he needed to do. The lead advantage has dwindled down from 36.6 seconds to 34 seconds, now down to 27.3 between first and second place, because that's another new fastest lap of the race from Marcus Clutton. 1:33.204, quicker than anybody through the first sector, quicker than anybody in the race through the second sector, quicker than anybody else in the race through the third sector. So 3 purple sectors and a new fastest lap for Marcus Clutton. And what's even more impressive is that 1:33.2 was 7 seconds quicker than the race leader. So in another 4 laps, subject to traffic, he could even be right onto the coattails of Paul Fullick. Now Team Brit will be on the radio saying, look, if you've got anything left, Paul, use it, push as hard as you possibly can, but don't make a mistake. Marcus Clutton will know the task in hand, but if JMH Automotive, who are supporting PB Racing, are on the radio, they'll be saying push, 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 because at the moment your rate of close is enough. You will catch and you should have time to get past. This great fight still for 6th and 7th is raging, and this time David Brabham has got the inside line to put the Group GTO Mercedes through and ahead of Charlie Digby, who didn't put up a great deal of defence for that, largely because he's not fighting that Mercedes. He's fighting other cars in Group GTC. Whereas that Mercedes is the only car in Group GTO this weekend. So, in fact, Charlie is coming back in. That was why he wasn't putting up the fight, so he's going to come back in to the pit lane. And I'm afraid with 32 minutes to go, we'll have to try and see as to whether that is for further attention to be given to that rather troublesome front right-hand corner of the car with the damage. So he trundles his way all the way down towards pit lane exit end, which is where they are, and it is going to be for a penalty, I'm afraid. So it is a stop-go penalty. So that was why it must have been just a slightly short pit stop for them. So into the pits, back out again straight away. And has that lost them a further place in the group? No. Will it have lost them a further place out on track? Possibly. Depends whether Rob Garofal went through. Big grassy moment for the Raceworks Motorsport Ginetta G55 of Andrew Perry. We saw him have a slidey moment down at the Old Hairpin yesterday when the track was in dry conditions. Well, it's not unsurprising when it's all wet and damp and greasy and on used tyres that he had a small moment there. Did well to hang on to it, and he will still continue to lead Group GTA, and has now moved up to just outside of the top 10. Running in 11th position overall. So the racing is continuing out on circuit. Let's go back down to the pit lane, where I think Joe this time has caught up with somebody from Triple M Motorsport.
Rob Garofalo down here in the pits, handed the car over first in GTH. It seemed like a solid opening stint for you. How was it behind the wheel?
Yeah, it was great. You know, the Ginetta seems to be fantastic in the wet. It allowed us to actually play with some cars in the classes ahead of us a little bit as well. But yeah, no, car was solid, and it was a nice clean opening lap or two, which is important, and hopefully Harry can take it to the finish.
And just talk us through the conditions, because it started wet under the sunshine, it sort of dried out, then it rained again, then it started drying again. It seemed to be the only consistent bit of it was how inconsistent it was, really.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the finding the wiper button on the steering wheel was the first job, but no, you're right. The conditions were changing almost lap to lap, and now what I'd say is probably even harder to make the choice: do we go to slicks or run with the wets to the end?
Oh no, well that's great. Thanks, Rob. We'll let you get on with the rest of the race.
Thanks ever so much. Cheers.
I love that, Joe. The only consistent thing was the inconsistency. Absolutely, yeah, well put, well put. It looks as though Charlie Digby is the first to decide that slicks are the way to go, and straight away also Charlie Benson is in as well. Now, is that for a change over from wets to slicks as well? So yeah, Slick Pirelli's going on the Lamborghini to try and salvage something out of this race. Doesn't look as though that damage to the front corner has overly affected the performance of the car in reality, but Triple M rolling the dice, trying something different. 29 minutes to go. That's still a good race distance, and if they are happy that the driver is confident that slicks are the way to go, why not roll the dice? Because you know, you've lost a chunk of time. You probably were only going to end up down at something like 4th or 5th in the group anyway, and by coming in and putting on slicks you might gain a few more places. The other car is in, and also the race leader is in as well, so in comes Paul Fullick. This will be for a stop-go penalty rather than a change of tyres, so they must have had a short pit stop, Team Brit. They're being held for a lot longer than other cars were, and it is a stop-go penalty of 29 seconds for being too short on the pit stop, I'm afraid. Led to believe they were supposed to have stopped for 150 seconds plus 20 success seconds, but it's clearly been a miscalculation somewhere, because that is a long stop-go penalty, and that is now going to mean that it will be Marcus Clutton that will have taken over the lead. He was only 4.6 seconds adrift of the BMW, and I did wonder at the time as to why the BMW had opened up such a large gap over the Audi when Peter Ursig wasn't that far behind it in the early stages, and after the pit stop there was such a gap, and that sort of answers the question now, because the BMW wasn't in the pit lane for long enough. But look at how much that track has dried. Look at the dry line there, the usual racing line, really dry now. Now, the difficult thing for those that have now swapped onto slicks is that when you meet a bit of traffic, you can't stay on the dry line. You've got to go on the wet line to try and outbrake, which is not what you want on slicks. So it's a roll of the dice. It really is when you move the car over from wets onto slicks on a drying track when there isn't a full dry track. It's just a line. So Marcus Clutton still continuing at the moment. He will work his way for what will be the completion of lap number 41 over the start-finish line, and he pops in on lap 41, the fastest lap of the race, a 1:32.924 from Marcus Clutton. Everybody else at the moment is sort of 1:34s we've just had put in by James Pickford as the best lap that number 63 Lamborghini has done, but everybody else is heading towards 1:40s at the moment. So the wet tyres are really now beginning to feel this drying track. And the difficulty is that, yep, you can still move offline to try and cool the tyres down, but there's less water offline now because that's drying as well, which means that you can't quite cool the tyres down to the same degree. So every lap they just get that little bit hotter and that little bit hotter and that little bit hotter, which means you have less grip, the car moves around more, and there's nothing you can do about it. You've just got to try and either manage those tyres or, like they've done at Triple M Motorsport, roll the dice. Number 4 car out on its slicks tyres, and it's just completed an out lap, so we'll keep an eye as to what its lap time is this time through, because the best wet shod lap we've had has been a 1:32.924 from Marcus Clutton, and this will be the first slick shod lap that anybody will have put in this race so far, albeit there's a bit of traffic to deal with, which will be Alan McCullough's BMW. But as far as Charlie Digby is concerned, he met that traffic in the right place and was able to wiggle his way through without too much delay at all. Now this Lamborghini still running down in 11th position. It's still outside of the top 10. It's in 4th overall in its group, that being Group GTC. as we say, it is on slicks. It still might take another couple of laps for the slicks to fully come up into temperature, and also because this number 4 car doesn't appear to have a working transponder, we can't really see the sector times of the car, so we have to wait until it comes over the start-finish line to see what the lap looks like. Marcus Clutton has just put in another new fastest lap of the race. 1 minute 32.215 is his fastest lap of the race at the wheel of the number 9 Audi, and he is now safely onto lap number 43 with quite a sizable advantage, I would have thought, now in the lead of the race. That will be confirmed as and when Paul Fullick comes over the start-finish line at the wheel of the BMW as to what the lead advantage looks like. Out of Goddard's and over the start-finish line, the slick-shod Lamborghini goes through and does a 1 minute 36.9 at this stage. So that's still a couple of seconds quicker than most are doing on their wet. So, yeah, slicks are probably the right tyre for the surface at the moment, as Peter Ursig alluded to in his interview with Joe down in the pit lane. Marcus Clutton could well go even quicker this time through at the wheel of the Audi. He's slightly slower through the first sector, quicker than anybody through the second sector of the lap. He took a wide line going in towards the Melbourne hairpin, unless he outbraked himself, because when he just caught the tail end of that shot, it's more likely to be a wide line trying to seek out the grip. And as Marcus Clutton this time comes over the start-finish line, 1 minute 32.4, so a couple of tenths down on his fastest lap. But again, you can see diving to those wet parts of the circuit. Still, these Pirellis have got 25 minutes to try and hang on. But Marcus Clutton has now a very comfortable lead over the Team Brit BMW in second place. Third at the moment is going to be the leader of Group GTC, which is going to be Luke Bennett in the number 8 Ginetta. Fourth is number 63, which will be James Pickford, who picked up a place that time through. Up to fifth has come David Brabham at the wheel of Group GTO leading Mercedes. Down to sixth from fourth on that lap went Dan Brown at the wheel of the car that he's taken over from Jack Gadd, that being the number 59 Lamborghini. The Group GTH leader is next up, which is in 7th place, which is car number 888, Cameron Pratt-Thompson. And then in 9th place is now Charlie Digby, who has just done a 1 minute 35.937, which means even with the damage on the Lamborghini, he's still lapping anywhere between 3 and 4 seconds quicker than some of the cars that are running right towards the sharp end. Doc Bush trying to stay out of the way. Marcus Clutton trying to carve his way through, and there's contact further back, I'm afraid. Yeah, Harry Ewell is pitched into a spin by Sam Branston down at the Melbourne hairpin, and that was just 4 cars, with one of them being the race leader trying to carve their way through, and if anything they were all being a bit too polite and sort of tripped over each other, I'm afraid. So Harry Ewell still pointing in the wrong direction down there. He'll spin the car back round and get going. Doesn't look as though there's any real damage to the Ginetta, but the damage was done when contact was made and the car spun around. Or has it broken something at the rear of the car? It has. I think it might have broken a toe link, you know, because that car looks to be crabbing a little bit. So looks as though Rob Garofal, who we've just spoken to, may well see that car coming into the pits. Seems to be getting back to full pace now, actually, or is he? Let's just have a quick look. No, still not quite right. You can tell that Harry Ewell is not confident with the way that that car is reacting at this stage, and I would imagine he's going to turn his way in towards the pit lane. Yes, he is, and you can see, yeah, broken rear toe link. So that car is going to head in towards the pit lane with 22 minutes to go. There you can see it crabbing its way down the pit lane. Just that contact that was made with that rear tyre, and you can see the steering angle. You can see the hands on the steering wheel of Harry Ewell as he's trying to put lock in to try and keep that car pointing in the right direction to get it back down towards the tail end of the garage. Now, is that retirement, or are Triple M going to try and repair that broken rear toe link on the car? So he was just wrong place, wrong time. They all were trying to stay out of the way of Marcus Clutton, and I'm afraid there was just a small misunderstanding between where Sam Branston wanted to be and where Harry Ewell wanted to be. And I'm afraid Rob Garofal, who was full of joys a few moments ago, is going to be a rather glum person now down there in the pit lane, because it looks as though that car may well be out of the race. Lap times for the slick-shod Lamborghini, 1 minute 34.930. which means that that car is now lapping at a similar pace to the race leader, and others are now reacting to that. They have seen the lap times tumbling down. They know there's 20 minutes on the clock, and they now also know that wet tyres are just not going to hang on in some cases. So Cameron Pratt-Thompson bringing his car into the pit lane. He took over that car from Mark Ellman. That car qualified on pole in Group GTH, and it was leading Group GTH at the time it came into the pit lane. So that is a decision the team have made, that okay, we might lose the lead of the group, but we can't run around on those wet tyres for another 20 minutes. And problems out on circuit. That's a car that has stopped out on circuit. That's Hadley Simpson, and that looks as though that is the exit of Redgate Corner. And again, there is that broken rear suspension. That left rear does not look right at all on that Ginetta. And again, that looks as though, yeah, either a toe link or some sort of suspension failure on that side of the car, because the angle of the wheel and the amount of the tread that we can see has brought that car to a halt. Now, that is going to bring about the safety car, because there's no real way the marshals can get to all the marshals posts there at Redgate Corner and Hollywood and Craner Curves are all on the outside. There's no marshals on the inside, so it's impossible at this stage of the race to get over to it. And even then, with a wheel pointing in the wrong direction, you cannot push the car. It just won't have it. So no choice but to throw the safety car. The safety car is trying to get out of the pit lane to catch Marcus Clutton, but Marcus Clutton is already through at Redgate Corner, and the safety car didn't quite get out in time. So that is going to mean that Marcus Clutton is probably going to have to do another full lap before he can catch the safety car, and then the safety car is going to have to wave everybody by. So that is going to take a while to sort, because they will only start the wave by as and when the incident is cleared, I would have thought. So 19 minutes to go. Marcus Clutton, who was looking very good in the lead of the race, is now going to have, I think, a decision to make, as are all of the teams. Because we're under safety car, because the track is dry, now come in and put your slick tyres on, because those that pitted under green flag racing from wets to slicks are now going to have a disadvantage, because if you can change from wets to slicks under safety car, that's going to lose you less time in reality, because all the rest of the cars are plodding round at safety car speed rather than racing speed. So if there's any question mark about which tyres you want on, which now surely is slicks, you've got to come in. I don't see how many of the teams can afford to stay out if they haven't already got slicks on, unless they can see something in the sky that I can't, because for the moment it looks as though it's beautiful blue sky above. There you go, look at the blue sky. There's not a cloud in the sky at the moment at Donington Park. We've got a drying circuit. We've got cars on very second-hand wet tyres now that have been punished for the last, what's that going to be, the last 82 minutes. Still some cars moving over onto the wet parts of the track, but for me, I think if I was driver or if I was team manager, I'd be saying, look, okay, I think we're now at the stage we've got to. The cars on slicks are going much, much quicker. We're going to have to come in under safety car. Now is the time to do it. So we'll see as to whether we've got many takers for that. And you think that I might have done this before, because they all dive in, not unsurprisingly. In comes Marcus Clutton, in comes Paul Fullock. There are other cars already in the pit lane, and they'll all be going through the same process. Luke Bennett comes in, James Pickford comes in, David Brabham comes in. They're all in the pit lane, and they'll all be going through that same process. Now, because they've done the mandatory pit stops, this element of it is a non-scheduled pit stop. They're changing tyres. It's as quick as you can do it. Absolutely, as quick as you can get that car onto the air jacks, get those preheated Pirelli slicks on the car, get the wheels bolted back up again, fire the car down the pit lane. Make sure you don't speed in the pits though, because if you do, you will still pick up a penalty. And you can see off are coming some fairly second-hand looking Pirellis that have worked really well. Brilliant tyre, wet tyre provided by Pirelli. But when the track is dry, the tyres just don't like it. They're not built for dry tracks. They are built for the wet conditions, which was where we were the best part of 70 minutes ago now. So off the air jacks will come the Audi, off the air jacks will come the BMW. A few of them still staying out there at this stage, so not everybody has decided to call in. We've still got out there the number 59 car of Dan Brown. You see that car there just going past the scene of the incident at the moment. Going to have to lift the back end of the Ginetta up. So low on the front though, you need to be careful that you don't lift it too high. And is the Audi restarting? Yes, it does. Marcus Clutton on his new Pirelli slick tyres goes out into the race. And he can really get his foot down now. Team Brit taking a lot longer over this pit stop. You can see the BMW in the background of the shot just drops off the air jacks. So Marcus Clutton back out into the race. The incident still being cleared, and then once all of the cars are queued up behind the safety car, then there'll be a bit of reordering that we'll need doing as well, one would have thought. Team Brit released Paul Fullick down the pit lane. So slick tyres for him. Be careful as you accelerate out of the pit lane, because the racing line is dry, but the pit lane is still damp. Tyres do go on preheated, but not absolutely at racing temperature. You still have to bring them back up to temperature. And you also have to be careful as you go past that stricken Ginetta as well, which I think shortly is going to be moved out of harm's way. I think they're not going to start to move that car until we've got the full line of cars behind the safety car, because when you've still got cars strung around the circuit, you know, where does that telehandler go? If it's going to go back towards Redgate or into the infield of the circuit, you still need to make sure you've got a gap. And I think they perhaps decided that maybe that's the wrong piece of equipment for it. So the telehandler is going to head back, and I think it is, yeah, the flatbed recovery unit is coming out. So the initial response was to try and quickly get the Ginetta out of harm's way, but of course they've got there, they've assessed physically what's happened to the car and mechanically what's gone wrong, and I think the correct decision now is, yeah, to avoid any further damage to the car, but also get the race back going as soon as possible. Flatbed recovery unit will have to be done. They'll have to winch the car up onto the flatbed, so there'll be a few more laps behind the safety car, but that's not a bad thing, largely because it allows us to get everybody all bunched up behind the safety car, because we'd had cars come into the pits and change tyres. That had jumbled the order and cars were strewn around the circuit. Everybody will then form the crocodile. Then there'll be, once the incident is cleared, probably a little bit of reordering to make sure that it's the race leader that is at the front of the queue, which it isn't at the moment because the Audi is about 4 cars off the back. Then those cars that are waved by will have to catch back round to join the queue and fully form the queue again before we then go racing. So there's still going to be a period of time whilst we remain under safety car in what looks like now a glorious afternoon at Donington Park. All of those clouds in the distance have now moved away and deposited everything. We've now got beautiful clear skies above us on the Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire, Derbyshire border. So we'll just run you down through the order. Car number 9, Marcus Clutton leads the way and leads Group GT3. Second place is number 38, which is Paul Fullick, and third place now is number 28, which is David Brabham. Fourth place is 63, which is James Pickford. Fifth place is going to be Luke Bennett. James Pickford, by the way, will be leading Group GTC. Paul Bailey will be leading Group GTO. Then Group GTH being led by the next of the cars, which is completing the top 6 at this stage, which is going to be James Waring, and Group GTA look down to 9th, the Big Ginetta and Andy Perry. So that's the order at the moment. So as we say, the first of the cars behind the safety car is Charlie Benson. So the safety car, once the incident is clear, will wave by Charlie Benson to allow him to unlap himself, get himself back onto the tail end of the train. Then they'll wave by Cameron Pratt-Thompson. Then they'll wave by Doc Bush. Then they'll wave by the next car, which is now going to be Rupert Williams behind the wheel. The next car after that will get waved by, and they'll all get waved by until we get the Audi lined up behind the safety car. Once the Audi is at the front of the queue, and once everybody else that's been waved by has been able to go back round and catch back up with the queue, then the light should go out on the safety car. So I think we're still a few laps away from that, because where is the Audi? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8th in the queue at the moment. So there's 7 cars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars, 9 cars that will need to get waved by. And all of those 9 cars will then need to do another lap of the Donington Park circuit to fully catch up. That would be my understanding of how this would probably work, but we'll wait and see as to that is whether that exactly happens. Now 12 minutes on the clock. The incident up at Redgate Corner in the process of being cleared up. Such a shame that the safety car has come out, and it's not as though I don't think there was any sort of contact probably that caused that. It wasn't a crash, it's just something that probably failed on poor old Hadley Simpson's car, or if there had been a bit of contact, it was light contact, and it's not as though we've got a car stuck in the gravel trap. You know, all of the difficult conditions when it was wet and greasy and in between, everybody coped with brilliantly, and now we've got a dry track. Maybe it's just something with the changing conditions that's caused this problem. So Hadley Simpson will be bitterly disappointed, as will Seven Christian, as will Innovation Racing, Simon Griffiths and the team. So as we say, there's no reordering taking place just as yet. That would usually only happen once the incident is cleared, and then the safety car will start to wave by. So once we've got the exit of Redgate Corner clear of recovery trucks and clear of Ginettas and clear of marshals, of course, then we can perhaps, if that's what they're going to do, start to see cars waved by until the number 9 Audi is at the front of the queue. And Avery Recovery, I think, have pretty much got the Ginetta on the back already. Didn't take long. Once all the cars have gone by, the recovery unit can move out of harm's way. And once the recovery truck is back behind the wall, one of two things will either happen. Either the wave by will happen, or the lights will go out on the safety car to indicate that we're just going to go straight back to racing without any reordering. So we'll wait and see. That's down to the regulations, down to the conversations in race control between the race director, the clerk of the course, Butte Motorsport, as to what process they want to work their way through on this one. We've got 10 minutes of the race still to go before we pack things away and head to Norfolk and Snetterton, the 300 circuit, for rounds 3, 4, 5 and 6 on the 16th and 17th of May. Then we come back to Donington Park again on the Grand Prix circuit on the 27th and 28th of June, but that will just be, rather than this weekend, a pit stop race and a longer 100-minute race. That will be 4 races that weekend, 2 sprint races, 2 50-minute pit stop races, and then it'll be on to Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit, Brands Hatch and back to Snetterton. So the wave by is happening. So there we go. The 9 cars that needed waving by have all been waved by the safety car, which means that the Audi is the first in the queue, and there'll be no further reshuffling from there. So in other words, the car that's second in the queue, the pink Ginetta, will stay there now. So you look to 1, 2, 3, 4th back in the queue. That's the second place car in the race in reality. And the difficult thing for Paul Fullick is that he can't overtake any of those cars ahead of him when we get back racing until the start-finish line, whereas Marcus Clutton can sort of go for it straight away. So it really does hand a handy advantage to Marcus Clutton. And the reason the lights are staying on the safety car was, as I indicated, those cars that have been waved by need to continue around the circuit again at an increased speed so they can catch back up with the end of the queue again with the Crocodile. So there'll probably be at least one more lap behind the safety car, so that those 9 cars that are waved by are now joined on the back, which they're not at the moment. The car that's at the back of the queue is going to be the number 8 Ginetta of Luke Bennett. So lots of weaving still being done. Of course, now the cars are onto slicks. You've still got to move them around and try and maintain the temperature in those slick tyres, which have only just been bolted on before the safety car as well. In the case of some of them, bolted on during the safety car in the case of others, which means that they've not as yet fully got up to race temperature, and trundling around behind the safety car is just going to cool them down again. Those that are staying out on wet tyres, and as you can see there, Andrew Perry again just pulling right the way over to the right hand side of the circuit, the left on our screens as we look at it, just to try and get onto the damper piece of tarmac. So they'll be hoping that this few laps behind the safety car, when everything cools off a bit, it's just allowed the wet tyres to cool down a bit. So the slick shod runners want to get on with it now. The wet shod runners are happy to plod around behind the safety car for as long as possible, because it means that they are not having to wrestle the car around on very, very worn and used tyres anymore. So safety cars speeding up a bit, which does suggest now that those cars that have been waved by are slowly catching the train. There is Luke Bennett, who was at the back of the train. No other cars in the back of the shot as yet, though, so if they can catch up quickly, we might be able to go green flag racing again at the end of this particular lap. Some of those cars that were waved by are only just still coming over the start-finish line, whilst the main pack of cars behind the safety car are up at McLean's corner. So I said one more lap behind the safety car, possibly 2. I'm more inclined to think it might be 2 now, because the safety car is up at Coppice and we still haven't got the queue fully formed as yet. So the safety car bringing them around through Coppice corner. The clock still continuing to tick. We're going to get 7 minutes remaining at this stage. Still everybody weaving around to try and maintain their tyre temperature. The one that's not is the pink Ginetta, which is for sure still on its wets at the moment, and that's why it's just sort of sitting there and picking up wet bits of tarmac. And are we going to see the race underway at the end of this lap? We still haven't got the Crocodile fully formed, but the clock is ticking down, and the race director will be keen to see us go back to green flag racing. But is it going to be at the end of this lap, or might it be one more? If the safety car gets down towards the Melbourne hairpin with lights on, which it does, I think we're going to have one more lap, because those that were waved by simply haven't caught up as yet. So there is the safety car, the lights are still on. Now we're going to need one more lap behind the safety car, but once everybody's caught up, the safety car will increase its speed. So it's been going round slowly to try and get everybody joined in, but not everybody is quite caught up in time. So it'll be one more lap behind the safety car. Safety car lap, last few laps has taken about 2 3/4 minutes. Into the pit lane has come Sam Branston, and I wonder whether he might have a small problem with that car, because he got down towards the Melbourne hairpin and I gather didn't quite take the usual racing line down at the Melbourne hairpin. So maybe there's a small issue with that car. So safety car continuing round. A few more have now joined the queue. So as you can see, the 24/7 Ginetta is now in the queue. Cameron Pratt-Thompson in the SVG Motorsport gold coloured Ginetta is there. Doc Bush has now joined the queue as well. Rupert Williams is joining the queue, and Dan Brown is now joining the queue. So some of them the wave by have now fully caught up. So I suspect this is going to be the last lap behind the safety car, which is going to mean we'll be in for a grandstand finish, really. We're going to get 4 minutes, something like that, out of this one, maybe 3.5 minutes, which should equate to probably 2, maybe at the very best 3 more laps of racing to try and decide as to who's going to claim the win. And confirmation from race control that the safety car will be in at the end of this lap. So the lights remain on for the moment. Somewhere down on the approach, either into or out of the Fogarty S's, is where the lights will get extinguished. Safety car will peel away, and Marcus Clutton can then decide as to when he wants to go for it, which I suspect will be as early as he can, because he knows full well that the pink Ginetta behind, followed by the white Mercedes, followed by the white and blue Lamborghini, are all cars that he doesn't need to worry about. It's the next car thereafter in the train, which is Paul Fullick at the wheel of the BMW, is the second placed car. So if Marcus Clutton can get his foot down nice and early, and the BMW can't overtake until the start finish line to get past any of those 3 cars ahead of him, then that means that Marcus Clutton is going to have a very strong advantage heading into the final 2 laps of this race or so. So last bit of weaving being done. You can see him chucking the Audi from side to side. The lights were on the safety car. It will come out of the Fogarty S's. Those lights, I can pretty much guarantee you, will be extinguished when we next see the safety car, which means it's going to peel its way in towards the pit lane. Yeah, it's sped up away from the pack. It's going to make its way round through the Melbourne hairpin and up towards Goddard. Marcus Clutton will be able to see out of his window as to where the safety car is, and then one would imagine probably on the exit of Melbourne he will go for it as well, because he'll know the safety car will be clear. And as he comes out of the Melbourne hairpin, there we go, the engine revs rise on the Audi, and he is sprinting his way uphill towards Goddard, and there's nothing that Paul Fullick can do about this. He can see the Audi disappearing off in the distance, but Paul Fullick is fifth in the queue. He can't overtake anybody until they get to the start finish line, which is where they're going now. So through goes Marcus Clutton now, and only now can the BMW get going in reality. So Paul Fullick still isn't quite close enough to James Pickford. Paul Bailey is able to pick off the Group GTA leading Ginetta and place a lap on that. And Paul Fullick still trying to work his way through the traffic, and at the back of the queue, keen to get things going as well, is Charlie Digby at the wheel of the red and day glow Lamborghini, because again he's another one. He's a quick driver that's out there, but he's got slower cars ahead of him that he can't overtake until the start finish line, because it's only at that point the race fully gets back underway once more. So down through the old hairpin goes Marcus Clutton, and straight away absolute best first sector from Marcus Clutton. He's been plodding around behind the safety car, having only just put his slicks on during the safety car period. They're still not fully up to temperature, but he has gone through the first sector quicker than anybody in the whole race so far, Marcus Clutton. And look at the lead advantage that he's now got, the whole length almost of the exhibition straight. An absolute best second sector as well. This is what pro drivers do. They are plug and play things, our pro drivers. You put them in any car and they are quick. You tell them what they want to do, you don't need to. They'll do it automatically. And Marcus Clutton straight away, first real racing lap on those slick tyres, and he's going to set the fastest lap of the race that we've seen so far. Onto the brakes, in towards the left-hander goes Marcus Clutton. A 1 minute 32.215 was the quickest lap of the race. Now that we moved on to slick tyres, how about a 1 minute 28.5? So all of a sudden 4 seconds quicker than his previous best lap that he did on used wet tyres. Now his first flying lap on slicks, and there we go. That's the kind of difference that those tyres make on a drying track. And straight away he's already catching traffic, and that is the Ginetta that was in the pit lane is now back out there. Now, good fight going on for third and fourth as well. James Pickford has just picked the pocket of David Brabham, and now that means that the Lamborghini is now up into third position and is running in the lead of Group GTC at this stage. Frank Morris will be beside himself now that they are on for an overall podium. They're also potentially on for a group win as well. James, who wasn't able to drive yesterday because he was racing elsewhere, so Jamie Stanley was on driving duties yesterday. They're through and ahead of the Group GTO leading Mercedes. And as they head up towards Coppice Corner now, can David Brabham return the favour and try and carve his way through? David Brabham, of course, Formula One driver back in the day, and was also a race winner at Le Mans. Huge amounts of racing experience, looking to see whether he can reassert himself back into a podium position. But at the moment it looks as though James Pickford and the Lamborghini have the legs. We've got a drive-through penalty, I'm afraid, and that is overtaking before the control line for Dan Brown at the wheel of the Top Cats Racing Prepared, number 59 Lamborghini. So that car is going to have to come into the pits. It was running in 6th position, but it's not going to have much time to come into the pits for a drive-through penalty, so it may well get converted to a time penalty after the race, one would have thought. No, he is going to come in, so well done. The clock is pretty much at 0, but on the final lap of the race, as he's about to start it, he will come into the pit lane to serve that penalty. The clock has ticked to 0. Marcus Clutton, with the fastest lap of the race on his first flying lap on slicks, is probably going to obliterate that this time through as well, because he is absolute best through the first sector and is heading up towards McLean's Corner and Coppice, and down the straight towards the Fogarty S's is where the second sector concludes. And if he's quick through the second sector, this is probably going to be another new fastest lap of the race, which is not unsurprising given Marcus's talent and racing experience, the fact that he's well used to this Audi, having campaigned it with Peter Ursig for the last few years. Absolute best through the second sector as well. We saw a grandstand finish at Donington Park last year in the first 100 race of the season. Thousandths of a second separated the win. It looks as though it's going to be a far more dominant win and a first ever win in GT Cup for PB Racing, Peter Ursig and Marcus Clutton, who are going to come through in what has been an intriguing race with changeable weather, changeable tyres, mandatory pit stops, and the first 100-minute race, round 2 of the GT Cup, goes the way of Marcus Clutton, who on the very last lap of the race sets another new fastest lap, 1 minute 26.960. It was a debut win for Team Brit yesterday. It's a first win in GT Cup today for Marcus Clutton and Peter Ursig. Second place should go the way of the Team Brit BMW, which is just coming up towards Goddard's now, which is going to be Jamie Folvey and Paul Fullick. They'll be disappointed they haven't claimed a double win. They'll still be delighted with the way their first weekend in GT Cup has come. And third goes the way of Frank Morris and James Pickford. Congratulations to them. They complete the overall podium but claim the win in Group GTC. Paul Bailey and David Brabham will finish 4th and pick up the GTO honours. 5th will go the way of the number 4 car of Mike Taylor and Charlie Digby. Who'd have thought that when they were carving their way into the pit lane with lots of damage. Finished 5th overall and 2nd in the group. And then, despite the time penalty towards the end, Jack Gadd and Dan Brown will complete the top 6. There'll be a win in Group GTH for Mark Ellman and Cameron Pratt-Thompson. They've already taken the checkered flag. And the win in Group GTA in the end went the way of the BMW of Neil Wallace and Ian Astley, who picked up the win in the end by only a couple of seconds in the end from Andrew Perry and Dan Quintero in the pink Ginetta. So congratulations to Peter Ursig, who did lots of hard work in changeable conditions for him. Marcus Clutton took over the car on what were wet tyres on a drying track, which Peter Ursig said at the time that he pitted was probably the right decision, but 5-10 minutes later they really thought that slicks was where they needed to be. The safety car came out, that gave them the perfect opportunity to swap onto the slick tyres, and with a few back markers between himself and the Team Brit BMW, with just a few minutes to go when the race got back underway, it always looked as though it was going to be the first win in GT Cup for the Audi and the pairing of Peter Ursig and Marcus Clutton. So they pick up their first win of the season. What might they be looking like towards the end of the year? Because they're a quick pairing, as are Jamie Fulvey and Paul Fullick, but of course it's where you finish in your group, that's what counts. Peter Ursig and Marcus Clutton claim the win from James Fulvey and Paul Fullick in second place, and the winning Group GTC goes away of Frank Morris and James Pickford, who finished third. Group GTO winners were there in fourth, Paul Bailey and David Brabham, ahead of Mike Taylor and Charlie Digby, who finished in fifth, and Jack Gadd and Dan Brown finished in 6th place. 7th place went the way of the car of Bertie Bream and Luke Bennett. It was Mark Elwin and Cameron Pratt-Thompson that claimed the win in Group GTH, finishing in 8th overall. And 9th place is our Group GTA winners, which is Neil Wallace and Ian Hasley. Then it was Andrew Perry and Dan Quintero that completed the top 10, and as we head outside of the top 10, in 11th place it was Rupert Williams and John Ingram. Next up in 11th, it was Ben Taylor and Charlie Benson, with Doc Bush finishing in 13th place. 15th place was Sam Branston and James Waring. 15th place next up was Dennis Story and Alan McCulloch, and I'm afraid we lost Hadley Simpson and we lost Harry Ewell with damage to the rear suspension on their cars. One was the right rear, one was the left rear. They were our 2 retirees. Fastest lap of the race on the very final lap as well, a 1 minute 26.960. So the cars are making their way into their garages. They will be held under park Ferme conditions. You can see the congratulations going on in the background of the shot from Peter Ursig. So let's look back at some of the highlights from our Donington 100 race. The race got underway under damp conditions, and that meant that it was deemed to be a safety car start for the cars as they acclimatised themselves to the circuit. Paul Bailey was busy squabbling away with Jack Gadd in the early stages, the Lamborghini going through ahead of the Mercedes. Another Lamborghini though, Mike Taylor, was involved in an incident up at Goddard's which brought his Lamborghini into the pit lane with lots of damage. The pit stop window opened. Into the pit lane came Peter Ursig to give way to Marcus Clutton. Everybody else was busy refuelling as well as conducting their driver changes just as the circuit was all drying. Team Brit, however, came into the pits just a few seconds ahead of the Audi. They left the pits about 30 seconds ahead. The reason being they were too short on their pit stop, I'm afraid. And that brought them into the pit lane for what was a stop-go penalty. The battles continued out on circuit as well. Charlie Benson had taken over the number 247 Ginetta, but as the race leader was coming through to lap traffic, there was a misunderstanding in the pack, and Harry Ewell was pitched into a spin by Sam Branston. He recovered, but out on circuit, breaking down, was Hadley Simpson. That brought about the safety car with just a few minutes to go. By the time we'd reordered the pack, it would be Marcus Clutton that would come home on his slick tyres that he changed to under the safety car period to restart the race. But there was only a couple of racing laps left in it, and nobody else was able to live with the pace of Marcus Clutton and his slick tyres. So he would come through to claim a win, and it would be the first win in GT Cup for Peter Ursig and Marcus Clutton, who came close last year but just ultimately missed it out on amended results. They correct that with a win in the opening 100 race of the season, round 2 at Donington Park. So there we go. That was the highlights of the race, and that is it from our GT Cup action today. Please come and join us and watch the footage at Snetterton on the 16th and the 17th of May when we return to our usual format, sprint race and a pit stop race on both days. So from everybody from Butte Motorsport, from GT Cup, from Onside Productions, myself, Mark Werrell, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.